The Fantasmagorium show is proud to present Set to Stun, a Star Trek show that is an irregular one. Stardate 20232.23. Let's continue through the completely normal, not contentious Season 3 of Star Trek Picard. We're on episode 2 now. Let's see if this week is as uneventful as last. Your landing party for today is Admiral Steve Foley, Lieutenant Antiderivative Jill, Communications Officer Antiderivative Jill, and I am Chief Scotty R37. Without further ado, energize. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Good.
Wonderful.
I should have said, and we are live.
We didn't
do it. We'll do it next week.
Let's do it next week. I'm assuming that everybody saw the episode today.
Did.
And yeah.
Yes.
And was it painful?
Partially, but not completely.
Well, that's good. There is a poll in the chat. As we mentioned last week, we're not necessarily going to be rating these episodes because the greatest rating that we could possibly give so far is, are you going to be watching next week? And as has been evidenced with any of the new Trek, Steve and myself specifically, if we just think things are going to be going off the rails, then it's adios. We're going to be done with it. But so far, we'll get to it at the end of the review. But we're putting it to you, and we will be answering the question: are you going to be continuing on to episode 3? Before we get into the episode proper, are there any glaring thoughts or opinions that you wanted to get off of your chests before we get outside of Federation space?
Not really, just that it's important to remember that it's Kurtzman Trek and we're still in that universe, the non-Star Trek universe. And so we have the Star Trek label. And since we still have the label, I do hold it up to the standards that it should be.
Absolutely. And Steve, anything specific? I do have one more question after any pending thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But did you have anything that you wanted to get off your chest or to highlight before we get into the episode proper?
No, other than I thought it was a great episode.
Okay.
I liked the first episode. I thought this one was actually better. And this Picard season 2 and 1, for that matter, both did this to me. I liked the very first 2 episodes, and then it went in super downhill after that. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't think
it will, because even though I'm saying this is not Star Trek, because it's not, the storytelling is obviously more competent and things are tying together better.
Now, the one question that I had, just because I do want to have sort of a topic of discussion before we get into it, is I remember when the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, and don't worry, I'm not mixing up my stars, but when the sequel trilogy came out, there was a petition, I think specifically surrounding The Last Jedi, and there was a contingent of fans, pardon me, who were under the impression they developed a petition saying, can we just retcon all of this and dispense with it and do a redo? Can we do a do-over and get another sequel trilogy to replace the one that was ultimately unsatisfying for Star Wars fans? Is that something, Jill, that you would like to see, and Steve, for myself, for the previous Star Trek shows that have been out since 2017, ultimately unsatisfying? Would you want some kind of a retcon, and do you think that that's a realistic event to occur?
That's absolutely my dream, is for Secret Hideout to get out, for somebody who loves Star Trek, for several of the people who were in the Berman era who created Star Trek with Gene Roddenberry to come back and make Star Trek the way it should be, and just the rest of it was just somebody's bad holographic error.
Steve, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't think that doesn't sound realistic to me at all.
No, but it would be really cool.
I mean, yeah, it would be cool, but I can think of 100 million different things that would be cool. Like you said, Scotty, redoing the Star Wars the way that I would like it done. So there's a 100 million IP out there that I wish was done better, or to my liking or to my standard. But I don't say that as in the fact that I don't want it to happen. It's just unrealistic in the time we live. I don't see not Paramount nor the people in charge of Star Trek. Sorry, giving up that that power, that title, and I don't see Paramount wanting to do that, and I don't think they're gonna. As much as I think they should, I don't think they'll retcon any of this or sweep it away and try to reboot. Just like they wouldn't do that for Star Wars either. So
absolutely,
I wish they did, but they're not. Sorry.
No. I'm sort of jumping in, but absolutely, and I do recall that was something that when Enterprise came out, and it was like, seriously, do we even have to pay attention to this? And luckily, worse Star Trek showed up, and everyone loves Bakula again. So I'm a happy man.
I liked Enterprise. I thought it was great. But
Me too.
I think the consensus was, especially at the time, this is garbage. It's written by people that don't love. So all the same things we're hearing about.
Well, not exactly. Well, but actually, Enterprise really went back to a little bit of TOS in terms of actually caring about some of the science fiction and ideas that we had.
I mean, that's true, but the criticisms were almost exactly the same. In fact, jumping back to Star Wars again, the criticisms about the prequels are almost exactly the same as the sequel trilogy. So, it's fandom. This is what it does, And a lot of times, especially when you're passionate, it splits. Especially if it's not exactly what everybody wants, right? So.
But the actual split is when Enterprise died and it was canceled by Les Moonves, and he destroyed the Star Trek experience in order to erase all of the Star Trek.
You meant when Deanna Troi
before
crashed
2005.
the Enterprise D. But no, so that's why I think that.
And then we got the 2009.
Yes. I don't want to drag the whole thing up in terms of being a where do you plant your flag sort of situation. Again, this is a Star Trek show. I woke up this morning even being unsure as to whether or not I was going to like this episode. I'm going forward with it because I want to like it. If it does go off the rails, it'll be see you later. But I woke up with new Star Trek on the plate in a way that I didn't get with Strange New Worlds, with Discovery. I know that there are Strange New Worlds fans. I don't even have enough of a frame of reference for Prodigy. And, I look forward to Lower Decks the same way that I look forward to a Ziggy cartoon. It's there in the newspaper, but it's not necessarily something that I'm like, way. But yeah. So if any of us here like it or dislike it, it's not like we're running up to you in the middle of the streets and kicking you in the shin, laughing and running away. You're entitled to your own opinions. Please, sure. If you hate it, hate it. If you like it, like it. We're just here because we're Star Trek fans and we're talking about it, and we hope that somebody, yourselves, everyone in the chat who I will say hello to very shortly, I hope that you take something away from the conversation and either meet in the middle or like reinforced in how you feel. We're not.
I will add that I do like the direction so far. I kind of like the setup we're getting. I thought the episode 1 was definitely a table setter. I think this is actually a continuation of that table setting, but we're getting a little more, into the meat of what Robert Meyer Burnett said something really interesting today. He said that so Picard season 3 is like a movie. He said the first 4 episodes are act 1. the next for Act 2, and then like a 2-part Act 3's big finale, which I thought was interesting. And he said it was intentionally set up that way, which is cool. So I think we get a good table setting here, and then over the next 2 episodes, 3 and 4, I think we'll see that arc start to to play out and into our second act. So I'm excited to see where this is going to ultimately go.
Well, and to labor the metaphor, I'm looking forward to getting past the appetizer and on to the main course.
Yes,
but
there are story elements that make sense one after the other, which is it's sad that that's monumental for New Trek, but
yeah, right. But that's good. That's it. I mean, like things are not a complete horror show like the first 2 seasons, at least not yet. And I don't think we're gonna from what, like, just kind of continue on from what we were talking about last week with the people who have seen this in its entirety several times now, that it's unlike either one of those seasons, which is good.
Well, and as far as I'm concerned, when the reviews come out, and I respect every YouTuber's opinion, every reviewer who is out there, more so, I'm glad that there are people out there who have seen all 10 to sort of say, stay with it until you don't want to anymore. I appreciate that sort of signpostage. But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Star Trek reviews, as soon as Mike and Rich from Red Letter Media say their thing, that's when I stop watching the reviews for those episodes. It's just like, thanks, guys. I'm good now. And speaking of last week, I did not announce the results of the poll, which was, it's the same poll as this week. Are you going to be continuing on with next week's episode? Last week, there were 19 votes. 53% of the vote said yes, and 47% of the vote said no. I like the 47 because that's a long-running gag on Star Trek. But pretty much, if one more person had voted, it could have been split right down the middle. And so I do appreciate you guys participating, because it does gauge as to not only how you are feeling, but also who's paying attention to us. So thank you very much.
And it shows the divisiveness, right, of obviously New Trek, I think, as a whole. And then, I think you had, especially before the first episode aired, you had I think kind of half and half of the punditry liking it, half of the punditry saying I don't trust it, and I have no reason to trust it, and I'm not going to trust it just because you tell me to, which is fine. Right. All right, cool.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of that poll kind of bore out that way, which is interesting and cool and fun.
So please just remind me at the end so that we can sort of showcase that poll and see where people are thinking, where their heads are at.
Yeah.
Before we get into
do people know where to go to do the poll?
The poll is in the chat. Everyone who is here, if you are listening on the rerun, as I mentioned at the end of the episode, we will say what the live viewers were thinking. But if you do have any thoughts, comments, concerns, and you are listening on the rerun, thank you so much. And thank you to the lurkers. Just please feel free to comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, tell your friends, and all the YouTube algorithm things, because hit the button, hit the bell.
The algo beast loves comments.
They love it the most. I do want to say ahoy to Edge of Time, who is once again reiterating filthy.
Yes, because this is the filth in which is any Star Trek after 2005.
Yes. Although we could have, we should probably do a Kelvin trilogy rundown at some point.
That sounds like something perfect for this channel.
Doesn't it though? Doesn't it? I appreciate you being here, Jill, and I'm sorry if I do touch your channel in any of the places on the doll with the filth.
Don't let your negative experiences, don't carry your negative experiences into new adventures.
History will inform the voyage forward.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Thank you, Scotty.
And again, I don't want to speak for you, Jill. Please feel free to shut me up and shut me down whenever you need me.
No, you got it exactly right. Forgetting history forces it to repeat. We cannot forget it.
Want to say greetings to Lemon Pie. Hey, Lemon. And ahoy to Skogly. Skogly, I saw you on Twitter saying, I don't know what's going on with this YouTube thing, but can't we just be friends? And I agree. I'm not going to highlight my own comments, even though they're really witty. Levin says, Scotty's Disengage, the title of the episode or the sentiment of the review? Title of the episode. Title of the episode.
Both for me.
And Lemon Pie. I did say, are you guys ready for some Parisi squares or some Ambo Jitsu? And Lemon Pie, how about some Dabo?
Dabo!
Or some Tongo? PvP is here. Hey, PvP. I hope you got my email, sir. Thank you. Hail. Was that in quotes? No. I usually don't hail, but I responded. Very Pavlovian. PvP says Disengage was a fitting title. Well, it is a part of the plot. And hello to Matt G. And 100 million. I'm assuming you're referring to Elvis fans.
No, the 100 million different IPs that Steve wants changed. We'll have a podcast on the,
and I assume but everybody's like that. Everybody has an opinion, right?
Yeah, well, and even with that, like there were Neil Blomkamp was going to make an Alien 3 that would have ignored Alien 3, and as an Alien 3 fan, I'm like, no, please don't erase Alien 3. And welcome back to the channel. Long time no see, Gundel Whittlebaum. How are you doing? I hope you are doing well.
Hello.
PvP says, I just wish the community would turn down the polarizations. I have issues with it, but hating anyone for having a different opinion is a waste of energy. I absolutely agree. And guys, I am going to try and, we still got time. We're only 17:01 into this, so we can keep going. Lemon Pie says, Picker, I liked Enterprise overall, though it had some weak episodes too, as did most Trek TV. Mm-hmm. PvP says, I liked Enterprise more than Voyager. For me, Voyager was the weakest of the classic Trek series.
Agree.
I think so. I would put in my list, I would put that below. Admiral Teague is here. What's the meaningful difference between Picard and C-3PO? Why meat shield behind others if this show is so good? No meat shielding. We're just sort of discussing our own opinions on it, and feel free.
Yeah, Picard's more like a Blade Runner replicant at this point.
A skin job. And PvP says the poll pretty well hits you in the face in the chat. Well, and it will collapse once you have made your decision. I think, as far as I know, Lemon Pie calls it a poll facial. And hey, Vic Fontaine from the Holodeck says, I'll be watching next week's episode because I have 1 week left in the free 1 month subscription. Bingo, bango.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. Well then, shall we?
Let's do it.
Can we just talk about sports in real Star Trek? That sounded more like fun.
Well, I don't know. Do you want to gamble at Quarks?
Yeah.
All right.
I've got some credits.
Fair enough. Some Latinum. Who wants to do a quick rundown of previously on? Nobody? All right. Picard gets a message from Beverly. They have to go to a system that is outside of Federation space. He goes and he checks in with Riker. Riker tries to says that they're going to develop a clever ruse to get onto the Titan. With the assistance of 7 of 9, they fool Captain Shaw to be able to go to the system where Beverly's ship is. Meanwhile, on Metalis Prime, Raffi is investigating the theft of a portal gun, and that portal gun ends up destroying a mid-level recruitment station. And we get to on the Titan, we get to the place on outside of Federation space, and they find a person who is, oddly enough, British and Beverly's son, and then a big bad ship shows up and credits, right? We're good?
Sure. Yeah. A big ugly ship.
Big ugly ship. So we start off this week's episode 2 weeks ago, and we have the Elias that is being piloted by this young lad, who I'm pretty sure, like, it's Jack Crusher.
The Elias isn't the Mariposa? Or...
No, it's a Mariposa
Elias.
class. The Elias is the name of the ship.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he is there approaching a planet with what he claims to be medical supplies. And he is intercepted by the Fenris Rangers, who say, you have entered, which I thought was really weird. You've entered our airspace.
Right.
Which I was like, well, phrasing, are we not going to do that? Anyway, sorry. I'm just going to, there we are. I want to mark my spot so I don't lose the chat. And back over here. And this is our head Fenris Ranger. We don't get a name, but we know he's Australian. He's a space Australian.
Yeah.
And he says, without the proper documentation, you are not getting onto this planet, or you will be boarded and inspected. At which point, Jack Crusher says, well, we don't have the paperwork. And he says, inspection it is. So they board and do an inspection. And it is, they go through the supply crates.
Like, under whose authority exactly? Like, just they're just like, okay, you're in our space, and we're gonna
he is in their airspace.
But like, what space? Aren't they just supposed to be some kind of vigilantes? Why is it their space? I don't really get what territory are we in, and how does some random vigilante connect with that region of space?
Good question. The way I perceived it was that it wasn't a Federation planet. And again,
right, it's not.
This could be a matter of headcanon, and tell me if I'm speaking out of turn in terms of headcanon. But it seems like this would be the employ of the planet. They've asked the Fenris Rangers to aid them in their local security.
Sense, because mercantilism, piracy is the theme for this episode.
Yes. Yes. So they are going through and doing the inspection. Now, there is something that they do come across. They are fine with all the medical supplies and inoculations and whatnot. They do find, I couldn't get a good still of it because the bottle is always in motion, and they say Romulan ale, which is the bottle from Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. But I couldn't get a good shot of it, which I thought was a nice little nod.
It was cute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
because McCoy always keeps alcohol handy for medicinal purposes.
Yes, movie. I'm surprised you allowed that one. I'm glad that you're letting it pass. But there is one case that he was like, "What are we gonna do with these?" Because he does say, "Are you gonna break?" Or Jack Crusher says, "You can have some of the Romulan ale." And he's like, "Are you bribing me?" And Jack says, "Not with the ale, but with these." And there's a case of phaser rifles. And so, they say, "Okay, we're going to take these and send you on your way." And just in terms of being able to save the inoculation, battle the bad guys, guns a-blazing, everyone's a hero.
Yeah, space pirates.
And the Fenris Ranger, from what I understand, says, "Contact the marked woman. We have found him."
Yeah.
We get to present day, which is today. Big bad ship. And with the Elias there and the shuttlecraft, the shuttle that is docked with the Elias.
Oh, and before there was one thing I wanted to say about the last scene. I know why you skipped over it because it was really stupid. We got some weird, unclear exposition about how the warlords are using the illness to kill parts of the population in what they call the free zone, but we don't know what the free zone is and we don't care about it. Apparently, you can so it makes sense you can buy off warlords, but then they're just okay to save that. They're just okay with it that now Jack can save the population just because he gives them some weapons. None of it really, that part of it doesn't really fit for me.
In terms of the bribery of local authorities to...
Well, I mean, in terms of it mattering, in terms of the larger story, it just seems to be just there.
I can understand where you're coming from. It seems to be something to elevate the character of Jack and the mission that both Jack and Beverly are on. Just to make it so that they are more heroic. And if...
Yes, all for drama.
And again, dramatic television show. I don't want to get out of universe too much, but I can understand how that is not necessarily the Star Trek show that we're used to when we're playing outside of the sort of norms of the Federation and Starfleet that we've seen for so long, and has been bastardized by New Trek, or the filth as well. And so this is still ringing to a post-Dominion War galaxy, I would think is, but again, your mileage,
and outside of Federation space.
But see, it never mattered before if we were outside of Federation space. Starfleet has always done the right thing wherever they were, unless it was something unless it was like a treaty that was previously established, like the neutral zone. And I know Jack's not Starfleet, but Beverly is.
But who? No, I don't know that that's established actually.
Yeah. I would say that she's not, because she would be reporting to Starfleet to say where
she was, is what I mean. And at which point did she break with their Starfleet ideals? We don't know. And so that part of it is unknowable. And so it is less interesting as a result.
I think it's a question that we haven't necessarily heard an answer to, which is a peril of the filth as we go. Right. But I don't know if it makes it less interesting. It just seems to be another, what are these guys doing anyway? And we don't find that out in this episode.
No, we don't. Nor do I think we needed to, because I think a lot of these things will be answered. A lot of these open threads will be answered during the course of the season.
But of course, it also gets into the fact that Starfleet's still bad, because Starfleet was supposed to be post scarcity. Starfleet should be able to take care of whoever is having some kind of medicinal issue with procuring medication, but not in this universe.
Go ahead. Scott.
Sorry, Steve. No, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, it just, the problem with forming those postulations is that we still don't know where the Federation is after, like we said, post Dominion War,
exactly. So I think that those types of things should be set up. I'd prefer getting some kind of history.
And I think we will get some exposition later on as to what exactly it is Jack and Beverly are doing, what their affiliation with Starfleet are. And that ties into why Bev sort of took off on the crew of the Enterprise as well. Like, she hasn't contacted anybody, as Riker said in the first episode, but I would, again, to add a little bit of credence to what Jill is saying in terms of the echoes of Starfleet bad, Federation bad, is don't forget, this is the same counterintuitive Federation than we had known previously. This is the same Federation who decided to abandon the Romulan Star Empire in season 1.
Right.
So there is still, if you are recalling, if you are paying attention to that and saying that is still rolled into Picard season 3 because it was established in Picard season 1, I can understand where that point of view comes from.
I also don't think it's fair for the audience to believe that Terry Matalas and his team are going to fix everything that's bad with New Trek in one season of television either. Right? It would be almost impossible to do so and still put out a good product, I think. So
it could have retconned it all.
Too.
And Jill?
That's it.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, it could if he actually did retcon it and just go back to actual post Nemesis, post Dominion War.
And
I don't know, but I don't know that you could do that and still put out a product in what, 8 episodes or 10 episodes. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
not with
not
this
sure.
production crew who already.
I'm not sure you
created
can
all
do
of
that.
these
You know,
terms.
I think you know, as much as
You're right.
much freedom as Terry Matalas seemed to have had, it's still. I mean, it's still, you know, within a box, right? And I think it's unfair of us to think that one season of television can.
Yeah, and he's
repair
playing
all
ball
the
with what
damage.
Kurtzman wants generally.
or what he's inherited as a showrunner.
Right.
Like there are certain things, and there is sort of a lamp shading that comes up in a little bit, but there are the things that that have been pre-established in Picard seasons 1 and 2, and also in terms of if we are just sort of stepping out of universe for a moment, there are people saying that this is a return to form, and this is, if you're looking for good Star Trek, this is that good Star Trek. There are still the questions that if it is that good Star Trek, then how are you still playing with the rules that contradict what we've been brought up with in the original 735 Roddenberry Berman era? And I can understand people saying it's like, no, this is not the philosophy that was garnered, but I can see both sides of it. I am the tennis net, and I'm going to allow everyone to be
Milk toast fence sitter.
That's me, buddy. I am
That's
Nimbus 3.
That was a really well put comment, Scotty, because those contradictions show up in dialogue between Shaw and Riker in this episode.
And we will get there. We will get there in this episode. But we are back in the present day, as mentioned. And we are seeing the big bad ship with the Elias, with the shuttlecraft. And everyone's looking. And in answer to last week's question, when Jack says, take a look, and we were all like, well, why don't you just tell us? It's because he doesn't know. There were Fenris Rangers, there were Klingons, there were 3 Starfleet officers who were going to prime directive Jack into an early grave.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, what?
Okay, so Jack is saying that Starfleet didn't come to try to arrest him or bring him up on charges for using piracy to provide medical care or try to help him with the medical care. No, he says that Starfleet came to murder him.
Yes.
With the prime directive. Of course, again,
I think that's sort of a turning of phrase. I think he's being sarcastic, and I would like to remind you that Colonel West nearly assassinated the Chancellor of the Klingon High Council in Star Trek VI, so we're not dealing with people running for Pope.
Right.
Like, there have been negative representations of Starfleet officers in the past. Not all of them are angels. Captain Tracy, Valeris, Cartwright.
But usually go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done. My list.
I didn't mean to stop your list. I do like your list.
That's it.
But in those cases, those are isolated. You still have the larger Starfleet that is optimistic and trying to do the right thing.
Typically, but there again, it is. You have the I forget the episode where it's that Admiral Jameson in the first season of Star Trek Next Generation, where he goes back to the planet where he had armed both sides of a conflict with Karnak or Karnas or something. Like they're not angels. We're not dealing with the idyllic, perfect society.
How's that Cardassian flu, Admiral?
Well, and we'll get to section 31 when we meet up with everybody's favorite
section 31.
The Cardassian flu. Oh, maybe I'm conflating it with the
Admiral had that Cardassian flu.
I don't recall. Well,
I can't remember the episode, but it was in the 7th season.
Even in the Pale Moonlight, when you have Cisco, it's a fake.
Yes, but he wasn't proud of himself he had to do it because of the war, but he still erased the log. He knew it was shameful.
Oh, the episode was Ensign Rowe, I think it was called.
Oh, right. Yes.
Where he, So the
But
bad admirals in Starfleet, there's always been bad
there,
admirals, captains.
I'm not contending
Bad
that.
teams.
I'm just, yeah, and
but yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but again, if we're looking at rose-colored glasses, there have been Starfleet officers and ships of Starfleet that have not necessarily been on the up and up, and they can justify it any way they want as long as they're doing it for the good of the Federation. So anyway, Jack has encountered Starfleet, and then there were the bug people that we didn't know, led by someone who we will see shortly. Meanwhile, back on the Titan, we have Ensign LaForge getting a reading on the big bad ship, and not 100% sure what it is because the nebula is disrupting the sensors. And 7 of 9 saying, well, we have to go and find out what's going on, take us into the nebula. And I took so many shots of Ensign's or Captain Shaw that don't worry, we'll see a lot of him. This one isn't necessarily a good one, but he's like, we're not going in there. They did this. Like Picard and Riker did this themselves. They're out there, and this is their hoe to toe, as it were. So it's belay that order, and the only reason I have an image of this, I'm sorry, Hammerhead from Doom Patrol, but also it's nice when it comes to the filth that a lot of the bridge officers, they get names, which is great.
Yeah, another first for
the filth, yes.
Yeah.
And so we have the scan of big bad ship. Approaching ship does not match any known alien vessel. And Jack, beside the cryopod of Beverly, is saying, it's nice to meet you, in his British accent. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention, he did say mon ami earlier on in the episode. And so he says, nice to meet you. And we have Beverly still taking a nap. Riker being like, he does seem a bit familiar, wouldn't you say?
That was a great line.
Picard sort of, yeah, I don't know, yeah. And the big bad ship fires some torpedoes, launching Jack from the back. At which point, I don't know if you guys can see that. I have that as large as I can. If you want to full screen, that is the wreckage of the shuttle, which is the shuttlecraft Savick.
So, yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting touch.
Right.
Apparently, Savick was a captain in the supplemental material for this season, was a captain of a Titan in the 23rd century. So I thought that was interesting. But then that is our pre-credit action beat, and the title, Disengage. So we get to see the La Serena again on Metalis Prime.
Oh, wait, before that, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this big ship, I think it's just important to note that I forget the name of anybody, but it's just looming. It's not trying to destroy the ship, even though it's shut down. It could very easily be destroyed. So they want Jack, but what I'm saying here is that they don't have any. She doesn't have any gravitas for being scary because she's not going to attack anything when Jack is aboard whatever ship he's aboard.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we haven't got to that part yet.
Oh, and
yeah, I know.
And so, but we are on
100%.
Oh yeah, like if she wanted to blow up any of these ships, but we will get there. Back on Metalis Prime, Raffi is watching the news.
Prime, by the way, but Metalis Prime is actually from Enterprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Metalis Prime is actually named after Terry Metalis. It was the showrunners of Enterprise. It was a line of dialogue from Trip saying he had seen the rings of the moons of Metalis Prime. And the reason that they named it Metalis Prime is because they wanted to reference the fact that Metalis Prime was the shittiest planet.
Yeah. in the that they knew of.
And so yes, and just as a reminder, I'm sure everyone knows that Terry Metalis was a production assistant on Enterprise.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a nod.
Right. He wrote 2 episodes.
so while Raffi is watching last week's episode, I just want to say that PvP says a space Australian with bad skincare. PvP also wants to say, keep fighting the good fight, Jill. You make sure that we know it's the filth.
I will. I promise.
Okay. I know.
This is still Kurtzman Trek. Hey, guys.
And PvP goes on to say, you can't pull the wool over Jill's eyes unless she's wearing a toque. Bonus points if folks outside Canada get that joke. Hey, at least I pronounced it.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a woolly hat.
Oh, cute.
Sorry, PvP. I had to help the non-Canadians. Vic Fontaine says, yeah, well, it wasn't clear. Has the Federation collapsed to where medical supplies have to get to the needy through criminal acts, or is this outside of Federation space? I think it's outside of Federation space, Vic, but I could be wrong.
It is. They say that over and over.
Established that it's outside of Federation space.
Yes.
But we still don't know, and that, I mean, I think that's causing a lot of friction for some people. We don't know the kind of the state of the state.
Yes.
Of the Federation.
Well, and
it seemed pretty integral to know.
Well, and to sort of highlight, I don't know, the vanity of Metalis Prime, even though it has been pre-established in Enterprise, it is the only planet that has achieved a title card. Everywhere else is just like, I still don't know where Sector 7 is, or wherever it is.
District 7.
District 7, yeah, that's right. I don't know where it is. Is it on Metalis Prime?
I think it's on Metalis Prime.
Let's hope. But like, none of this stuff the geography has been questionable.
You mean where the recruitment center was destroyed?
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be good to know too.
Yes. Lemon Pie says, that reminds me, I need to pick up more Romulan ale tomorrow.
Nice.
True. So do I, actually. Although the hangovers are awful. PvP says, that is a really ugly ship. I found a lot of the ship effects mediocre at best. Are you referring to the big ugly ship, or are you referring to the La Serena? Because I don't mind the big bad ship, but La Serena
the big bad ship looks pretty cool.
Well, that was the interesting thing about Star Trek. They had healed. You don't get hangovers. They had come up with a cure for that, but on the Orville they didn't. So you still got.
Well, Worf is hungover in Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. I mean, TV show.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, if they're not drinking synthahol, they had some kind of.
And a positive highlight from PvP. I will give them marks for improving the dark lighting a bit. Yes, we are on a Starfleet ship, and it does look like it is relatively well lit.
And if Beverly's ship is ugly, by the way. So if that's what he was talking about, then I agree 100%.
The big bad ship?
No, Beverly's
ship.
Oh yeah,
that's an ugly ship.
Lemon Pie says they turned up the dimmer switch a notch. Hey, Picker. And PvP says Roddenberry's Starfleet was idealistic. This isn't. That's true. Mm-hmm. That is true. But again, that is something that sort of shifted the farther we got away to the passing of Gene Roddenberry, and even throughout the movies, the original series movies, he was not happy with the militarization of Starfleet in there.
Right.
And PvP goes on to say, never expected them to.
Also led, Scotty. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that
please.
Also led to great, some of the greatest episodes of Star Trek, in my opinion, with Deep Space Nine. It gave them the freedom to do a Deep Space Nine when I don't think we would have gotten that had Roddenberry lived longer and been in control of that. We wouldn't have gotten a Deep Space Nine.
But still, even within the scope of the war and all of the terrible things happening, Starfleet was still had its optimism generally, even when things got darker.
PvP says, no, maybe decent, but a return to form, it will have to get a lot better. I haven't hated or loved the first two. Yeah, fair enough.
A return to form is a weird, it's kind of a weird turn of phrase, right? I don't think it's never going to be Enterprise. It's never going to, it's never going to be the Next Generation. It's never going to be,
Star Trek.
Deep Space Nine, the original series. It's not going to be that. I don't know what return to form actually means.
And some people,
I don't know who's actually saying that it's a return to form, because I wouldn't agree with that. I don't think it's a return to form. I think it's better Star Trek than we have gotten so far in New Trek, in the first 2 episodes, at least.
Okay,
which is a pretty low bar. To be fair,
it's very low bar.
Yeah, and Karnas or Karnak, I forget what his name was, but it was a warlord who was on a planet, and Admiral Jameson, he was an old man in like one of those future wheelchairs, and he got a drug that made him turn younger, and then he had to fight, but he couldn't because he turned not into a baby, but he was aggressively turning younger. Anyway, it's in the first season of Next Generation, so we're not talking about the best of times.
Right.
Vic says, agreed. You cannot retcon everything in one season, but when you have to build that season on a flawed foundation, it will always be held down by those flaws, for sure.
And it can be held down by some of those flaws. Hopefully they can overcome a lot of that, but we'll just have to see. But you're 100% correct.
And Captain Finity is here. Hello, Captain Finity.
Hi, Captain.
And Captain says, it's hardly The Expanse, is it? Nope. It's different universe.
No, The Expanse is hard science fiction.
Yep.
We'll talk
different television shows. Completely different styles of shows.
And you can hear all about it next week on our new podcast, The Expanse. It's Expanse-orific. PvP says,
to be fair, none of the great Star Trek compared to The Expanse either. Completely different genres, in my opinion.
Well, and different motivations, different morals, messages, and meanings.
Captain Finity says, that's not Picard, that's a skin job. I do appreciate the Blade Runner reference. PvP says, I'm not impressed by biased folks on either side. I'm happy that people are happy with it, and I'm okay with people disliking it. I just don't see a need to pick it every Picard everywhere. If you like it,
as long as they're not liking it after they see it. If they're preemptively not liking it just to come down on one side or the other, I don't appreciate that. But other than that, happy. If you hate it, great. If you like it, great. If you're meh, awesome. Doesn't matter.
PvP says,
watch it before you get on YouTube and make a show about it.
Or give it a go. I'm not gonna watch it. PvP says Shuttlecraft Savick fan service, and there was a lot of that in this episode. And to be fair, there have always been Roddenberries and fan service throughout all of Star Trek.
So for some reason, and it's only been in the last 4, maybe 5 years, maybe even less than that. Somehow, fan service is now a dirty word. It doesn't have to be. Fan service done right is amazing.
This is though a very member-berry heavy series.
Yes.
Right, but like even the Forge in Enterprise, where they have references to T'Pau, you have Zephram Cochrane all over the place. In Voyager, it's anytime that they bring up Romulans, Klingons, Ferengis, whatever it is, because they aren't even supposed to be in the Delta Quadrant. That's fan service to try and hook people back in, saying this isn't Star Trek unless you have those aliens. There are examples of that throughout. Not that you're wrong in terms of the fan service. I just don't think that fan service is always a bad thing.
It's not.
I don't think it's bad if it is integral to the plot or the story, or comes up in a meaningful way, or is entertaining. I don't get that in this.
You're not entertained by the fan service?
Maybe the Romulan alien. That was about it.
Okay. I'm going to rename the Expanse podcast, Scogli. Thank you. It's going to be The Expanse Sans Pants. Thank you.
Sans pantalones.
And PvP says, my point is valid. If you are saying there is no fan service in this, you are wrong. I'm not saying there is no fan service. I'm just saying I'm not necessarily upset by it.
It's not. Fan service doesn't automatically mean bad thing.
I'm.
So if you're using it in that context, then no. But if you're just making an observation that there's a lot of fan service in here, Yeah, there's a lot of fan service in all Star Trek.
No argument here.
No argument.
So anyway, back to Raffi, who's watching the news, and she gets very frustrated by revisiting the thing that she just watched just now. And see, she's sad. So she starts punching up for Operation Daybreak, which is the investigation into the portal gun that was stolen from the Daystrom station, encrypting her communication so that she can talk to her handler again. And we get the interior of the cargo bay that is La Serena.
The AI
and
handler.
the handler. I still don't think it's an AI, and we will find out later. But Raffi, being the somewhat self-involved individual that she happens to be, says, I could have been faster and I could have saved those 117 people. And the handler says, do not seek blame and do not seek anger. But Starfleet Command is terminating the investigation until further notice. They've assigned...
Yeah, because Starfleet, has a problem. The newscaster says that the Starfleet recruitment building that was destroyed by the portal gun was a symbol of peace and hope. So, of course, the only thing in the show so far that resembles hope has been destroyed.
I don't know. I like the Titan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the only text that isn't present here is it says that Starfleet has identified a suspect, and that suspect is Lurak Tuluko, a Romulan fringe freedom fighter, who apparently, and Raffi has done some digging into Lurak Tuluko and finds out, like, what? Because the news said that? Because of the security reports? They've redacted things. I did some digging and I found out that it was actually a deal for the portal gun. And by the way, I said portal gun last week. Yay me.
Yes.
Yeah, no, when you said that, I knew that that was exactly correct. That was a great observation.
And Raffi says, I've done some digging and I found out that this deal was brokered by a Ferengi named Sneed. And do you guys know who played Sneed?
Aaron Stanford, who was Pyro. He was Pyro in X-Men, and he was also Cole in 12 Monkeys.
Terry Metalis'
another
show,
Terry Metalis series, which is amazing, by the way. He was really good in it too. I knew it right away. As soon as I saw him, I knew it. I knew exactly who that is. That's Pyro.
Jack Cole is who he played in 12 Monkeys, which will go on to be one of the aliases maintained by Jack Crusher. But the handler says, repeat, Starfleet Command has terminated the investigation. And I liked this. I thought this was kind of a cute thing where Raffi's like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to find out what's going on. And I got to find out who killed those 117 dead, that they're gone. And it's like 118. Should you continue? I liked that sort of wry threat.
Yeah, Starfleet is so bad now, they don't even want to help Raffi solve this massacre of 117 people.
Well, and again, Raffi has been...
only Raffi can do it.
Well, that's how Raffi's been. And we'll get to... upon rewatch, because I checked this out twice, I am kind of hoping for a little bit of a redemption arc for Raffi. But we'll move along with that as we move along with that.
Also a little... just a correction, Scotty.
Sure.
He played James Cole.
James Cole.
Yeah.
Okay. My mistake. I stand corrected. But the handler says, do not engage. And I didn't get this last week, but I do like it when the AI handler says denied. So Raffi, upset, bad, not going to do anything. But back on the Titan, here we go. We have Captain Shaw and we have 7 of 9.
Who's not in the brig?
Who? 7 of 9?
Yeah, she's not.
Not in the brig. Not in the brig.
Crazy.
And at this point, it has.
No, he had relieved her of her duties, right?
Well, no, she's still serving as second in command now.
He didn't send her to the brig.
No.
Did he relieve her last week?
No, it was in that beginning shot where we first saw.
Yes.
When he's like, I'm not going in there, and then he's like, you're relieved, right?
Right. And so she's still hanging out on the bridge. Oh, dismissed. Maybe not relieved, but dismissed.
Yeah, that's right. Dismissed.
And so, yes, 7 of 9. endeavors to persuade Captain Shaw to go and save Legends, at which point we do have is this when she is relieved?
Well, that parallels earlier when Shaw was calling them relics.
Mm.
No, she actually leaves on her own accord and says, "You know, do you want to be the hero
Who rescued heroes?
That rescues heroes?"
Mm-hmm. So she leaves the observation/ready room. And meanwhile, back at the Helios, Picard is setting up some transport inhibitors, and Jack is like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm not strategizing. I'm what does he say? Defending or something along those lines. He's preparing for the possibility that someone will be transported away, but the transport inhibitors are there, so he gets to stay." And very intense gaze. What do you? I just have a quick question for you, Jill. Being a person who happens to find dudes attractive, what do you think of the actor who's playing Jack here?
He's all right.
That and he doesn't do anything for you, really?
I don't know.
I don't mean to single you out. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
You-
I didn't really find him one way or the other. For me, personality reigns as much as looks, and so I don't like get excited over men just because they look good.
Oh well, and I found him. I in the brief interaction that we've had with him so far in the episode, I found him charming and engaging. I haven't found him to be annoying. He's certainly not Wesley. Like as an addition who's going to be a regular cast member throughout this season, I'm okay with his presence and I don't mind his performance at all.
I don't know. I think he uses. I think 7 of 9 used the word legendary in a very positive way, and in that way, Jack uses it in the opposite way. He uses it kind of in a condescending way, but that's the only thing that I've picked up from Jack so far.
He's got a pretty good Kubrick stare right there, though.
That is, yes. And so,
and for the first time ever, like you said, when he puts up those
transport
inhibitors, Picard does something in the show to help save someone without anyone else helping him achieve it. So that was interesting.
I thought that it was good to see Picard being proactive. Like he's still we're still dealing with a ridiculously old man, despite his skin job nature. Thank you, Finity. But like he's still acting it, and we'll get to the part where I found it just humorous. But it is nice to see him acting of his own volition and being at least an outline of the Picard that I remember. And so I am seeing again. I saw. I'm not calling this one Star Trek Patrick Stewart anymore because this one actually does feel like Picard. But it's going to be. I don't know if it's Johnny Stew and Frakes, but anyway, I am enjoying the characterization. And so this is where we're deciding as to what's going to be happening. Instead of beaming Jack away, it looks like there's going to be a boarding party. And at this point, there is like a pulse grenade that is thrown to Riker. He's like, "Hey, kid, throw me one of those pulse grenades."
It's a pulse. Was it pulse or plasma charge?
Plasma charge sounds right. Plasma charge sounds right. And he throws it down the hallway to dissuade the boarding party. There are, I think at this point, 0 intruders. And so they know that they are hunkered into the bridge and there's no reason to try and board the ship. And so they engage a tractor beam, a very sinister looking tractor beam. So if they can't board the ship, they're going to make the ship board the big bad one. I included this particular shot of the Elcar's display because one of the things that did bother me, and it bothered me in the last episode when Raffi slammed down her pad and it cracked. Apparently, no one gives a rat's ass about transparent aluminum. No one.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's exactly what I had in my notes, Scotty. Thank you for saying it first.
Great minds. And so, I found this to be come on, guys, give us just like static. And I know even on when we talk about it on Pop Culture Curator, when we talk with him on the animated series or the original series and having these sort of non-tactile buttons, well, it gets even worse when you're going to get shards of glass in your fingertips if there's any sort of stress to the structural integrity.
That stood out to me as well. Like, we know that transparent aluminum is a thing, but even if you don't use it, even in our science, if we made glass on the moon, it would be like 10 times the strength of steel here on Earth. So glass, almost indestructible glass, can be created by our,
modern technology.
By the Federation, that won't crack like this under pressure.
Well, and from what I understand, even on the International Space Station, they are reinstalling, and transparent aluminum or transparent alloys are a thing.
They are. Transparent aluminum is real now.
So again, moving forward with the Star Trek technologies that do end up coming to life. This is one of them that is because of show.
Apparently, this hunk of junk ship didn't go in for the transparent aluminum.
This is the plexiglass version. They had to. It was cheap. So we're suffering from the drawing of the tractor beam. What are we going to do? We're going to be pulled aboard. And this is the part where Jack says, "Well, it was nice meeting you," and then we get a knowing look from Picard for some reason, because it's like, it's been too long. I should have met you sooner. Why is that, JL? Not that anyone called him that in this episode, thank heavens. But in comes the Titan, and while it is a little frenetic, I think this would have looked better on the big screen. But reminiscent of the Enterprise E coming in to rescue the Defiant in First Contact, you have the Titan come and sever the tractor beam from in between the big bad ship and the Elias or the Elios, and this is the point of view from the bridge of the Titan. And they, in between this shot and this shot, they do destroy the transport inhibitors. And so that means shields are down, which is a thing. The shields are down, and they maintain being downed for far too long. But we get beamed up to the Titan. And after that, we go back to see Raffi.
Before we jump in here, I want to kind of reiterate what I said about last week's episode. I do like the banter between Picard and Riker. I've always thought they had great banter. But the banter is better here in these first two episodes than in the previous season, for season 1 when they meet up.
Yes,
it's just better.
Well, and it does feel more like their characters, and they're not like what was. I remember hearing someone saying in season 1 when Picard and Riker see each other, it's like hugs. Hug me. Oh, it's so good to see you. In this one, it seems like two professionals who had been through hell and back together. Actually,
they've always been cordial, but they've never been like
huggers.
Right.
So anyway, back on Blade Runner.
But I did want to compliment the show on every other new Trek. They would have forgotten all about the transporter inhibitors.
Yeah.
So, that the show doesn't have the memory of a goldfish.
This is true, and you're lucky that you never saw any of the turbo lifts in the Elios, because it probably would have been the size of a football field, moving to and fro on a one-deck ship.
I only heard about that. I never watched those episodes.
Never watch it. Never watch it.
Really bad.
Edge of Time says, "Service my fan, BB." And Lemon Pie says, that's important as spring approaches. It is. It's true. And Admiral Teague, yes. In what way do you think C-3PO would have done better or worse based on what you saw? Well, Picard's opposable thumbs work better. Edge of Time says everybody do need a sneeze.
That's a Dr. Seuss reference to the
Oh.
Lorax. Everybody needs a need, and it's like this thing that you can use for a hat or a scarf or whatever, bicycle seat. It's funny.
Vic says Sneed actually seemed like an interesting character, but that didn't last long.
We're about to get there, but it didn't last long.
PvP says, yes, Sneed's character was cut short. Well, he won't be attending that hat convention.
No.
And PvP says 7 of 9 was very annoying in some parts, so insubordinate she had to be relieved. Yeah, but at least they were following the chain of command to a certain extent, and to completely neuter her, for lack of a better term, would have been, I think, a disservice to not only her character from Voyager, but also what we've established so far.
I agree. I wouldn't characterize it as annoying, but insubordinate, absolutely. And I think she's always been a bit insubordinate.
She's always gone her own way, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, in New Trek, yeah, but
yeah,
no, in Voyager too.
eh.
She's always.
I think even like Astrometrics was something that she took upon herself to create, and they were like, "What did you do here?" And then it became one of the set pieces of the entire show. But PvP says, "I remember 7 of 9 could follow orders in Voyager, and she was the best thing in the series." Yeah, but that was also
most of the time, but not all the time.
But also, that was a time when she was exploring her transition between Borg to rediscovering her humanity, when it seems like she has a better... Sorry.
I related to her more in Voyager as a character.
Yes, I can understand that, but I just think it's a different time of her life and her experiences as being away from the collective, which we only saw really the first 4 years of her adult life being away from the collective. Right. And in this, we've had, like, let's say 20
at least. Yeah.
So for her to still be acting in that 7 of 9 sort of way, I think would have been an Arrested Development, not the show, but the actual term.
I think that there should have been some development, but there should have also still been some kind of ticks from that her personality.
Yes, I would have appreciated that as well. And I am being... Oh,
I'm sorry. I agree. The writers and showrunners of the first 2 seasons blew that character.
Yes. PvP says, laugh out loud. Scotty being rude, asking what makes Jill excited. Shame on you, Scotty. Yes. Again, I'm sorry. I don't mean to take advantage or stereotype anyone for what they find attractive. That was my mistake, Jill.
No, that's not a mistake. I liked the question because I got to express, the answer to that. I didn't mind it.
Cool. PvP says Jack Crusher was very annoying, but after Wesley, I'll give him a pass. Fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't like Jack Crusher, but then Scotty mentioned Wesley, and I was like, oh, okay.
See, it's all about comparisons. Admiral Teague says, is being an editor shameful, or is it an art? It would be an art, I would say.
Absolutely.
Lemon Pie says, Picard did 7 of 9 disobey the Omega Particle episode. I don't know. She certainly wanted to.
Yeah, she's always had that kind of rebellious streak. But then, there's very few episodes where she absolutely disobeys orders.
Well, but 7 of 9 didn't go to Starfleet Academy, so that makes sense.
And PvP says, yes, Starfleet must build panels that can shatter with any pressure or don't shatter. And I think that's not just me, PvP, but I think everybody's sort of agreeing on that one. I just made the picture. Daniel's Hot Topics. Hey, Daniel, nice to see you here, man. I just watched Picard season 3, episode 2. It was so awesome. They really improved the visuals from the first episode. Daniel says, this episode was so awesome. There was a mention of Section 31, and Sneed the Ferengi had his head sliced off by Worf. I like this new Worf. He is badass as ever.
We jumping the gun a little bit there.
We are jumping, but I just want to I want to give credit to Daniel's Hot Topics as he arrives. Sneed mentioned Section 31. It was so exciting. Usually it means that they are planning something for the future. We will get there when we get there. I have thoughts. Surprisingly. And Vic says, agreed, Jill. I like the more calm, more rational, cool, and collected 7 of 9 from Voyager. Yeah, I think it's just a progression of the character, and not that I yeah.
The universe obviously changed.
But I am looking. We'll see how things go. And 7 did express how she wasn't happy being first officer taking orders from Shaw. Maybe this particular adventure will find some even footing between Shaw and Hansen. I don't know. So either way, back on Planet Blade Runner, we have Raffi meeting with Jay, her estranged, until now unseen ex-husband, who is a bar owner. And Raffi is coming to ask if he can set up a meeting between the Ferengi broker and her to find out who had stolen the portal gun to sell to the Fringe Romulan. And we have an incredible, I'm not going to jump the gun on incredible, but we have more backstory in terms of what happened between Raffi and Jay, the birth of their son. Apparently, the son, Gabe, felt that Raffi had ambushed him and his Romulan wife at the doctor's office in season 1. And they have a bit of a domestic in terms of what had happened. Apparently, these two guys were the party couple back in the day. And Jay had made the decision to put down his partying ways because he had a new son. He focused on his art and his son, and that's how he moved forward. And I did like how Raffi was, and see, condescending, scolding look. And Raffi is like, it was so easy for you, which I found a carryover from season 1 in terms of her character, that she is angry at anyone who can actually change their lives for the better, because she is a person who never did.
Yeah.
Even though she's on a Federation planet on Earth where they have solved the problems of the drug addictions from the drugs that they're familiar with. So she has to be addicted to a drug that the Federation is not familiar with in order for any of it to make any sense.
Snake weed. But again, Jay didn't. No, snakeweed. That's what she vapes. That's her thing. That's her jam. Drug of choice. But no, but Jay is not on a Federation planet and had the opportunity himself. And so in this one, it's not necessarily a fault of the Federation, but it's actually a character flaw in Raffi. Mm-hmm. And I do like how they're not afraid of saying, no, Raffi is an obsessive addict who pushes everything to the extreme. She's an all or nothing person. Yeah. And so Jay says, I honestly thought that you were here to talk about our son, but if you want to have a conversation with the Ferengi broker, you can, but it's one or the other. You can I can put in a good word for you to our son, or I can introduce you to the Ferengi. Which one do you want? And you can tell by the look on her face that she does not choose her own son. So good work, Raffi. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the Titan and the big bad ship, we are discussing what is happening. No one is Captain Shaw is quite dissatisfied with the course of events that Riker and Picard have put them to, and 7 is definitely caught in the middle because she facilitated it. And I do enjoy how there is somewhat a chain of command going on in terms of everyone here deserves to be dressed down for putting the Titan in danger. Would anyone disagree with that?
Nope.
Jill?
No. Well, see, I was wondering, as I said earlier, I was surprised that she didn't end up in more trouble than she did, but it turns out that I don't know. What he says is that he asks her directly, did you help them get the shuttle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in a Starfleet vessel, you should have audio visual confirmation of what occurs on the bridge, as we've seen in several episodes that in which something was questioned. They go back to this footage that they have.
Even the original series, yeah.
Yeah. So that should be the answer to it. He knows she did it. So
Mhm.
why does he ask that question?
I do not know.
Probably
But
to elicit the response.
that's a possibility as well. But also, you do like I would think that this is taking place moments after what we saw last week, so he hasn't necessarily had an opportunity to go back and check the logs.
Oh, I thought it's been a week.
No, it was 2 weeks ago, and then we're in present day. So
Yeah.
2 weeks before last week's episode, I would think, is what happens
It's
with.
pretty bang bang.
Mm-hmm. We're pretty moving at a clip here.
Now, one thing I will agree with is Star Trek's always had a bad time with telling us how much time has passed between important events.
And well, in this particular instance, I don't get a sense of it being any longer than if you watch this episode with the last episode back to back. I would see it as being in the same timeline with one flashback.
Yeah.
But we do get Picard, Jack, and Riker brought to the bridge to find out what's going on so that they can explain to Captain Shaw. Beverly was beamed directly to sickbay, and she is in stable condition but unconscious. And then the big bad ship hails the Titan, and we get our first appearance of Amanda Plummer as Vadic. And at this point, I am going to take a step back. I love Amanda Plummer. I have since Pulp Fiction, and I have since So I Married an Axe Murderer. When she shows up, I think that she is really charismatic and lovely, even when she's playing an awful, awful person, which pretty much from what I've seen, she usually does. But she comes in with echoes of Nero from Star Trek 2009 in terms of hello, Christopher. It's like, oh, hello, Captain Liam Shaw, and indicating that she knows quite a bit about what.
Yeah, she's definitely done her homework.
Yes. And again, if we are going with the brief amount of time that has happened since the Titan has severed the tractor beam between the big bad ship and the Helios, then she really, she must have some sort of connections to a Starfleet database of some sort to be able to get that information. Unless
she had it even prior to.
Well, but we didn't know. This is like nobody knew. Nobody, but even nobody knew where they were going, why they were going. The Titan this is an unscheduled. She wouldn't have known that they were on their way. This is something that would have happened in the moment, I think.
She knows what kind of psychological problems that Shaw has that we don't know, and she also knows Picard is a replicant.
She does know that Picard is a replicant. She says, "Oh, Jean-Luc Picard." I like how she sort of growled it in the synthetic flesh, which I don't know if that's going to be the only reference to the replicant nature, but it seems to be. Oh yeah, look at that, just chewing up scenery. Yep. And still in a soft, lilting voice, but still being menacing. I've heard some people say that she was sort of channeling her father, because obviously her father is Christopher Plummer, who played General Chang in Star Trek VI. I didn't get that. I feel this is a completely different character, but I did enjoy her in this show, and I enjoyed her performance.
Me too. I love her delivery, and with the peppered in laughter.
Almost mocking.
Almost in a mocking way. It's really, really well done.
And we do get shots of her. You know, the best part about being Amanda Plummer in this show is she got a big comfy chair.
Yeah. She gets to chill.
And so we're basically talking, and she says that in a sign of good faith, she's going to lower her shields. And they do a scan and also her intention. She makes her intentions known that she is here for Jack Crusher because he is an intergalactic criminal, and that is what she wants. hand him over, and as a sign of good faith, I will let you know what I'm packing. And so they do lower the shields. I did have to get a picture. Yes, we're still smoking in the 25th century. I don't know. I guess it shows you're bad.
Yeah. Bad people smoke.
Only the bad ones. And so, yeah, Ensign LaForge takes a look, and we find photon torpedoes. Oh, my stars. I forget the name of the weapon, but it is the subspace weapon that was present in Star Trek Insurrection, which was outlawed by the Khitomer Accords because they're unstable. Many, like, just armed to the teeth, and an unknown weapon in their forward bay.
She says 40 isolytic burst warheads, 88
Yes.
plasma torpedoes, 236 photon torpedoes, and 18 antimatter missiles.
Yeah.
That sounds... Oh, it's probably just sensor shadows. And,
Yeah, right.
and to prove how serious that she is about the situation, she decides to take the Elias and throw it at the Titan.
What do you do?
Yes. And it's like, oh my God, what did they just do? What do you guys think of using this as like just throwing a ship at another ship? How do you feel about that particular
I think I was as
tactic?
surprised as they were that it happened.
Right. Do you feel that it's threatening? Do you think it's good? Do you think that it's reminiscent of other times that ships have been thrown at ships to make the entire fleet destroyed? Is this just, is it cool, or is it?
I thought
Is it?
Cool. I didn't. Yeah, I thought it makes sense too.
That actually. Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I'm
Please
sorry,
finish.
go ahead. I'm done.
Well, for me, it shows exactly how non-threatening she is because she's just grazing the ship. She's not actually. So, like you said, Scotty, she could totally destroy the Titan by tossing the ship into it, but she doesn't actually do that. And like maybe by making a warp core breach or something. I don't know. But so because she's proven that she doesn't want to fire on the ship because of wanting Jack.
Yes.
So her threats are kind of empty, and it takes a while before, well, nobody says that they realize it, but it takes a while before they do what they should have done when they realized it, or they should have realized it sooner.
Well, and we do get the scrambling on the bridge, and Captain Shaw says, raise the shields. And I was actually like, seriously? I thought you would have done that right after you beamed everybody off of the Elias.
Right?
But okay, good. And this is when the question is posed, what did they just do? And it's like blunt force trauma. They threw it at us. And if my father, again, it being Geordie LaForge, has taught me anything, if the laws of physics exist, they can be weaponized, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And so they're looking to Jack to find out what's going on. And he's just standing back there being Jack. He's just a pawn. And so we have some of the debris. Apparently there's been a hole ripped in deck 11. And the big bad ship is just going to sit there and stare them down for 1 hour.
Yeah, she's very good at looming.
Yes. I did want to get Captain Shaw doing a face palm. And just wondering, all right, well then I don't know what we're gonna do. But Picard and Riker and Jack all head to observation, or the ready room. And I did enjoy that they do have the consistency, or at least I don't know if it's a reference or if it's just something that ships do, is that they have their previous incarnations as wee little models that just sit there and they're on display if they want to show them off to any guests.
They
much
do
like
that on
First
Navy
Contact.
ships.
Do they?
That's a carryover. Yeah.
I do enjoy the naval traditions.
I like that episode where Geordie's building a real ship.
Yes. Elementary Dear Data. It's the one with the introduction of Moriarty, which we have not seen, but know will be coming up soon.
But Cisco builds one of the coolest ships.
Yes, the solar sail ship. Yeah,
the Bajoran ship. Yes, that is one of my favorite. That is probably my favorite Deep Space Nine episode.
Really?
Yeah. So
isn't that
far, it is.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm just surprised. I'm not incredulous. I'm impressed. I'm not angry. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And so we have a conversation as to what's going on. And Jack is saying that I'm protecting my mother. You don't even know what we've been doing. You brought everybody here. But Shaw and security show up, and Jack says, well, this took longer than I thought it was going to be. And Riker says, what are you doing? And Shaw says, I'm taking him to the brig. Absolutely. This is where Seven is relieved of duty and told to just get off the bridge, essentially, or get out of observation. Going to the bridge with a list of aliases, one of them being Jack Cole, not James.
But a kind of a wink, I would say, anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the last name Cole
Mm-hmm.
that he uses it again.
And then Riker standing up for Jack. And one of the things that is said previously by Captain Shaw is that the Starfleet does not negotiate with bounty hunters. And Riker saying that, or Shaw saying he's a criminal. All the things that he's been accused of are absolutely true. And Riker says, well, he deserves to be tried, and that is not executed. That ship over there isn't anything more than a guillotine.
Yeah, Riker has the right idea of what Starfleet should be.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be giving into anything. Terrorism.
And Shaw is acquiescing to a certain. I was getting shades of Esteban from Star Trek 3 in terms of, well, we have to do everything to protect this ship. And that is something that he had pointed out to 7 and 9, saying, way to go, you've endangered 500 for the whopping number of 2 people that you wanted to save. And he is more than happy to turn this fugitive over to the bounty hunters to save the crew of the Titan. And you should know that, above all, a captain's responsibility is to the ship and its crew. Picard
That's what the ideal should be, definitely, for any captain to strive for. But this episode, for some reason, makes it an actual rule of engagement for outside of Federation space, and I don't know when that's ever been a thing. Like, just to actually hamstring a captain into that, it should be just a thing that a captain does. It's to make it a rule, kind of limits possibilities in a way.
But, well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. But that has been transposed to the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many, specifically seen in Star Trek 3. But at this point, it is a matter of going to find out. They have 40 minutes at this point to go and find out what Jack is up to. And Riker and Picard go and they head into the turbo lift. And then Riker goes away for a while. We don't know where he goes. But the conversation in the turbo lift is Riker saying, are you going to level with me? Okay, so if that's Beverly's son, who's the puppy?
You're not seeing what I'm seeing?
Exactly. And Picard is saying, don't speculate. And so this is the thing that Jill was afraid of, and we will find out soon as to why she was afraid. But we get to the brig where we have a conversation between Jack and Jean-Luc, basically going down his list of offenses on Andor, on Benzar 3, and there's another planet that I forget, but outright murder. But it's like, did I really murder? That species has a hibernation period of 7 cycles. So is he dead? Is he asleep? We don't know. But they basically banter back and forth. Now, this is interesting because Jill and I did watch this episode together, and this is when I think this is the reaction after Jack says, when was the last time you saw Beverly, when was the last time you saw any of your crew? Do you think that you were just planting vines in France and everyone else went off with their lives and stayed exactly the same? And was it this moment, Jill, where you said, this is Terry Matalas yelling at us?
Yes, basically, yes. This is Terry picking on the fans of the next generation right here. He says, ask yourself, is there anybody you know who is still the person you knew? And while it's true people can change, the very core of their being wouldn't change as drastically as some of them have in Star Trek Picard. And more needs to be done to make those changes more believable.
Now, in just to sort of balance that out, I don't know if this is Terry yelling at the fans. I know you do. No, that's why I brought it up. I thought it was an interesting observation. That's why I brought it up, not to be argumentative, because I think it is an interesting thing. And I think it is something that anybody who has had criticisms of Picard or 7 of 9 of what has happened through Picard season 1 and 2. However, I think that the reaction of Jack to Picard, because even Picard says, who's your father? And he's like, I never had one. And then this is the reaction.
Right. I never had one.
And so I thought this was more a storytelling issue as opposed to a yelling at the audience. And I don't want to
take it that way either.
I don't want to fly a kite and be like, yay, it's because it's the storytelling and it's the character development of these past 2 episodes. But I don't think that it is a reaction. I don't think it's a reaction to the fandom saying anything about season 1 and 2. It wasn't my perception.
No, I don't think so either. And I don't think Terry Matalas actually cares for season 1 or 2. I don't think he thought they were good seasons. Now, if he would have been, if he would have been the showrunner and written all those episodes, then I would say, okay, then that makes sense. Then maybe he's using this, scene right here to yell at the fans. But I hate when people say he's doing something to the fans, and like you speak for the fans. Like I'm a Star Trek fan. Scotty's a Star Trek fan, and if it did, I don't like when we use that kind of phrasing, because nobody speaks for the fans.
It's a potentiality that I see from the way that I've seen him speak about the nature of classic Star Trek fans.
Well, and that's
in the past, it parallels it, and so of course people change.
But it's your interpretation.
Correct.
Right? It's just your interpretation of it.
It is, and it's a potential. It's potential. It's a potential interpretation. So
it is.
But that's
absolutely.
It's also potentially an excuse to be able to change whichever character traits he wants to without having much explanation. But I do hope there are.
And it's also an interpretation, or it's a way for him just to tell this specific story right here.
So if it doesn't
have any meaning at all, right?
If it is only just for the story, then that's great.
Yeah, but we don't know yet, right?
Well, and to sort of step out of in-universe and talk about like the production itself, Jill, you've watched interviews with Terry Matalas. I haven't. I've avoided it because anytime that Terry Matalas was brought up, the only time I was encountered with those interviews was before episode 1, and I didn't want to. That was right in the hubbub of everyone saying it's either going to be a dumpster fire or it's going to be the pearly gates. It's like, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch the episode. I don't really care what the showrunners have to say. I'm going to judge it on its merits. And I can understand how this is in reference to that, but I think that this is more of a dig towards Picard as a man in the moment, as opposed to, but I can understand how you can perceive it as being lecturing the fan base. And I think that we've encountered it before. Maybe I'm trying to think if it doesn't stand out in terms of Picard, but I have felt lectured to by by the filth. And I've been like, shut up.
In Discovery,
yeah. And it's been like, no, you can't, you're not. But also I agree with you, Steve, in terms of if it is a perception, if you are on, and as Riker said, if there's one place in the galaxy I do not want to be, it's on my back foot. And I agree. I'm not looking to find where I'm being told bad fan.
Right.
But if I see it, I'm gonna
Absolutely.
mention it.
I'm
Sure.
saying
Sure,
it is.
it doesn't make a lot of sense for a writer in the second season or in the second episode, I'm sorry, of a season to start lecturing fans that if he hasn't earned, I feel like he hasn't earned it enough to even be thinking about lecturing fans. So that never didn't land on me that way. It sucks that it landed on you that way, but I think like I said, everybody's opinion is theirs, and everybody's opinion is valid.
Yeah.
It could go either way. I just don't think he's earned. I don't think he even feels like he's earned the right to lecture anybody yet. I think he's just trying to make the best Star Trek he can.
And again, I think it is also, this is something that comes with the baggage of seasons 1 and 2.
Exactly.
Is that people can perceive it as being like, you know what, you've already fucked us so many times.
Well, Scotty, I would extend that to Strange New Worlds and all the Discovery too.
Yeah, for sure.
Package all comes with it, right? Yeah.
No argument. Don't even say short treks. So we get an eye roll from Jack, and basically everyone is frustrated with one another, and so Picard leaves the room, which I think is everyone yells at each other. They're all angry, and one person leaves, and the other one sits there defeated.
Well, but this is the first virtue that I've seen from Jack, aside from wanting to give people medicine, but he does it through shady means. But the first real virtue here is that he wants to give himself up for his mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Daniel's Hot Topic says 7 of 9 does not need to go to Starfleet. She must have assimilated so many Starfleet people and personnel and other races. She must be a genius, smarter than everyone else. Interesting.
I think that only works if you're still connected to the collective. I don't think it's downloaded into the Borg drone's mind, all of it. I think it's accessible, but I don't think it's like a hard drive that stores all of that information.
Well, and it's interesting, and this is sort of an aside, and I apologize for the digression, but it's kind of like in Wrath of Khan. Someone was saying that Khan knew how to operate the Reliant because he had read the technical journals on the Enterprise during Space Seed, and no one ever talks about the fact that he had just completely mind controlled Chekhov and Terrell, and maybe he was like, so how do we work this?
Right.
Like, what if there was a brief tutorial between the two mind-controlled Starfleet officers? Like, I don't think it was the photographic absorption memory. I think it was, how do we do this? And in the in Space Seed, there is even a moment where Khan says to the rest of the crew, I need you to help me operate a ship of this complexity. So it's not that he got all the information from the technical journals. So again, it's a matter of which lines do you want to read between and which ones do you want to highlight? PvP says, Raffi husband stuff I didn't have any interest in. And I wish they had jettisoned the Raffi character. Vic says, no interest in Raffi.
I have a feeling that not only is Raffi going to get a redemption arc in this, this is the way it feels anyways, that she's going to get some kind of redemption arc. And I think this little backstory is furthering her character development, but I can see why you wouldn't want that character.
Right, exactly. At this point, she hasn't been redeemed, and all it is some more family drama from the previous seasons.
But I do appreciate that they're digging her into an even deeper hole now. Like, they kind of glossed over Raffi. Raffi was helpful and kind of girlfriend with 7 of 9. Don't get me started. And now it's like, no. Raffi is still struggling. She's not trustworthy based on her ex-husband. She is still doing all the bad things that she's always been doing. I do not like Raffi as a character. She is grating to me, but I am interested just in the fact that I have seen the first 2 seasons, and if they brought her back, they didn't bring anybody else back. If they brought her back, then I am interested.
I have a
wouldn't even-
feeling that the only reason they did bring her back was to further this part of the story, because otherwise it's just, I mean, they could have put a new character in there and we would have followed along just as well. But if you have this character that's kind of, you know, that has played outside of the lines, like a character like Rafi, it made sense to bring her in to run this part of the story.
Well, and it's
with our main, you know.
And it's better than sort of creating another character. It's better than ditching the entire cast and then creating a new character that we don't even know and then having that intersect. And as we will see when we see it.
Right.
But having 2 characters from the show, the 2 different shows interact, that adds a little bit of weight, even if it's one-sided on the handler's side. PvP says, did anyone else see Shaw as a bit of a black and white cardboard character? For me, he's like Kirk without any nuance. I didn't see that, and I don't see him as being black and white.
I didn't see him as black as white either, except for the fact that if you mean by black and white, I don't like the cardboard characterization, but black and white maybe as in he's very by the book. He's a very by the book captain, and I think what we're going to see is in his character, if I can kind of foreshadow a little bit of what I think is going to happen is that that's going to start breaking down as this adventure goes forward, and I think we're going to see a little bit of a turn, you know, face turn for him too. But yeah, so if you mean by that staunch kind of by the book, it's got to be this way or that way, then I see the black and white reference.
Shaw is also very inconsistent with his competence. In some cases, he seems like he's competent. In other cases, you know, the story needs 7 of 9 to achieve something, so he suddenly becomes a fool every once in a while.
And I think more so in the first episode than in this one.
And I would say,
that's what I'm referring.
I don't know
the first one.
I don't know if it's I guess fool. I think it's more of a victim of circumstance in his case, because you know, if it was up to him, they wouldn't be anywhere near this.
Or maybe, you know what, not having like alarms in his room to tell him when the course is being changed or when the speed of the ship is changed.
Yes. Yes.
Is that us trying to interject story or story points? I don't know. Maybe.
No, I completely, that is one of my complaints from last week's episode, is that he essentially, in my opinion, got a little tipsy at dinner, decided to go and have a nap, and then woke up at the other end of the galaxy or the other end of the quadrant.
To be fair, he thought his first officer was above board.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah. He still trusted her at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Either way.
Moving on.
Moving on, and just so we can catch up to current. In regards, PvP says, in regards to Amanda Plummer's Vatic, I couldn't stand her. Found her overacting boring. I thought she chewed the scenery. Tell us what you really think, PvP. To me, she came across as a second-rate Bond villain.
You know what? I thought the same thing because I had just first watched the first. I just saw Bond, and so yeah, she has about the depth of the villain in that character in that movie. But this is our first time meeting her.
And then Vic goes on to say, Vatic didn't come across to me as ominous or foreboding antagonist. She was like my quirky, silly, eccentric aunt with like a lot of guns.
Yeah, a major arsenal.
Yeah. And so and the episode ends with her giggling gleefully as they pursue the Titan, and I found that ominous. And so I did find her character overall to be patient, exacting, and I find her ominous, but that's also me bringing all of my adoration for Amanda Plummer with it.
But I do think they're setting her up not to be, you know, the mustache twirling villain, as much as she's got superior firepower. She knows it. So I think it's more confidence in the army and in the strength of her position than and the being evil for evil's sake.
Well, she hasn't shown that yet, but there's potential for that.
Right. I mean, we're still only 2 episodes in.
Yeah. Daniel's Hot Topic says, how much you want to bet that Captain Shaw will get killed and 7 of 9 will become the new captain of the Titan? No bet.
No bets, because but I don't think it's going to go that way, but we'll see.
It's a possibility, Dan.
By the end of the season, would 7 of 9 become the captain of the Titan by the end of the season? Maybe.
She was just saying she doesn't want to be in Starfleet anymore in the last episode.
Yeah.
But, we'll find out.
Captain Pike said he didn't want to be in Starfleet at the beginning of The Cage. Captain Sisko didn't, or
That's
Commander
true.
Sisko said he didn't want to be in Starfleet at the beginning of Deep Space Nine.
I knew you were going to throw Captain Pike at me.
And I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm just saying, in terms of, if we're going to accept the precedent that has been set by the filth, unfortunately, it is, even having a Picard show means that it acknowledges the next generation, which means there is a continuity to it. We may not like all of this continuity, and in fact, you can throw away Discovery if you want, because it is a prequel to what I was caring about. And so, but yeah, I'm a mix and matcher.
But also, Pike wasn't talking about not following orders and not obeying, not trying to be a part of Starfleet. He didn't rag on chain of command like Seven did.
Well, he didn't like the responsibility of having to enact the chain of command, deciding who lives and who dies. And if you're following the orders, why would I do the wrong thing, which is sending people to die, if I'm being told by my superior, which is either going to be Starfleet or Captain Shaw? Anyway, again, that's my interpretation, but I can understand. Yeah, it is there. It is there. Daniel's Hot Topic says, do you think Moriarty will be a good guy to try and help, or a bad guy? Don't know yet.
I mean, there's no way to tell.
He's been stuck in the Matrix forever, so who knows what's been going on with his pretend life.
It's gonna be interesting how they introduce that character into this. So,
like, he's last time we saw him, he was stuck in a computer box.
Yep. On a desktop.
PvP says, no one ever stays the same. Gosh, what a profound insight. Well, yeah, it's also a jab. It's a dig. So I don't think it's supposed to be insightful. I think it is, like, again, it's like, what did you think? What were you doing? And moving forward, did you think that everybody you knew was going to be the dutiful Starfleet officer while you were sitting on your vineyard? And so I understand the sarcasm, but I understand where Jack's coming from as well. And let's get a little spicy. And Steve, it's your interpretation too.
I think I said that.
And then PvP says, thanks, Steve. Everyone's opinion is valid. And then PvP continued to say, although I think informed opinions are more valid. And while I do appreciate your perspective on this, PvP, as we go through this, we're attempting to inform our opinions, and we are looking at our collective history when it comes to Star Trek. And so, play nice on the holodeck is what I'm asking, I suppose. Hakeem, haven't seen Hakeem in a long time. When I first watched it, I saw him as just telling off Picard, but not being there for them. Yeah, ditto. But I do see it could be him shaming the fans and using it as an out of change a character we all know, and using it as a change using it as a out to change a character we all know. Yeah.
How could he have been there for her when Beverly didn't tell him about that?
Yeah. So. And that is a question that Riker poses in the first episode as well. Why did Beverly leave? And maybe Beverly left because of Jack.
Probably.
Like, these are things that are
nobody tells Picard about their sons. No one does.
All right.
They at least twice now.
Also, yeah, it is great to see you, Kim.
Yeah, it's been a while, and so thank you for joining us. So anyway, Picard leaves the room. Meanwhile, back at Blade Runner, Raffi walks into the bar. Well, this sounds like a start of a joke. And is surrounded by the guards of Sneed, who is huffing gas from his hookah.
Yes, he is.
And he says that he enjoys collecting old things. And as soon as...
He didn't say human, though. He said humans.
Oh, that's right.
No,
Holy crap.
His performance is kind of strange. Like for part of the scene, he sounds like a human himself, and then when he stands up, he sounds more like a Ferengi.
Yeah, I wonder if he does that. It seemed like that it was done on purpose because obviously he's, enamored with humans, and he's not following any kind of Ferengi code.
You're saying that he's talking like a human because he admires them?
I think so.
Well, he does have a baseball.
And
is
that the baseball?
No.
Okay.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh, you
Right?
keep Cisco's name out your motherfucking mouth." I was rather upset when I saw this because of course this is fan service. This is one of those instances PvP where I 100% agree with you and say if they show this baseball because they're trying to incite Cisco, I'm just like keep it. I don't want it. I don't like it.
If it's not signed, it's not Cisco's ball anyway.
Two different balls. No pun intended. No dirty joke.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's true.
I didn't mean to point.
Okay.
I'm turning
you're
into
actually
Sneed.
right. There are two balls. Excuse me.
There are two balls.
That
but we
wasn't
have
intended either.
No. But I was not happy to see the baseball. Although, and then it pans up and you see a hand grenade, and he does enjoy collecting human things, not human. And good catch, Steve.
Yep.
So Raffi's brought in to find out who Sneed had brokered the deal with between the Romulan and whoever stole the portal gun, and the Ferengi or Sneed says that I don't know you, and it's making me not trust Jay. I know Jay's ex-wife left for Starfleet. And Raffi says, I'm not with Starfleet because they're an organization that doesn't believe in money. And if there's no money, then there's no way to be high class or something. And so she drops her box of kryptonite, and Sneed is like,
way when that's rolled out.
Like latinum. Like if you want to fan service me, give me strips of latinum. And so Sneed says, well, I just don't trust anybody who comes into a place and offers me something for nothing. What do you want? And so Raffi says, I want to know who you brokered the deal with because I work for the Romulan. And he says, I can smell when I'm about to be stung. I've been stung so many times that I can smell a sting, and you smell like Starfleet, and you have to prove it.
Yep.
So we get a little bit of training day.
Right.
So Raffi, you ever get wet? And she does. So she does the drugs, and he asks again, who are you working for? And she says, I'm working for the Romulan. And he says, no, you're not, because I've got his head right fucking here.
Right.
Like it's straight out of Game of Thrones, and for that.
Well, it's been a season since we've had a beheading in Star Trek Picard.
So he just carries around heads, like just to show people. He's got a bag of them.
I'm assuming all of this is very recent, so that's why it's not gross.
It's all happening, in a very short, condensed period of time.
I'm not going to argue or disagree with you on this one, Jill, because it is really weird that he would just have it in his hope chest behind his chair. It's not his house; it's someone else's place, I think, or maybe it is his place. I don't know, but just put it in a fridge. So anyway, he says, I know you're not working for him because I killed him. Don't you think I would have taken care of all my loose ends? And so she starts to freak out because of the drug that she just took. And he says, but I am going to take your money and my men are going to take your head. At which point, and this is kind of blurry because you can't see, someone is impaling somebody from behind. Raffi falls to the floor all hepped up on goofballs. Sneed runs away, or not runs away,
Yeah.
but starts to cower.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the first scene with Worf in it. It's almost pitch black.
Well, yeah, and we do get
on purpose.
Yeah, it is. It is done in shadow as to make it a reveal. And
I thought it was just so they wouldn't have to worry about crafting too much of a good fight choreography.
No. I think it's absolutely for this reveal.
I think it's for the reveal
because it was dark and it was cut. They did that fast cut kind of action thing so that the choreography doesn't matter as much.
Well, you do, and I didn't get a shot of it because I didn't really, I'd have no excuses. I'm a bad person with slides.
No, you're perfect with the slides.
But there is a point where before we are seeing that it's Worf, he does the person coming to assist Raffi cuts off Sneed's head, and we are returned to beheadings in Star Trek Picard. The only, and this is my failing, and this one I will apologize for, is that Sneed has green blood, and I don't know what color Ferengi blood is.
Neither do I. I always thought it was pink.
I thought it was too, but it was green. It was green blood when he gets his head cut off. So we'll chalk. I don't know. I don't recall.
Question. Or is it yellow?
I don't recall. I'm
just gonna start listing colors.
Yeah, was it magenta?
But you know what though? It makes sense that Worf would take out all the guards, but I don't think he would have decapitated barely armed Ferengi. All he does is kind of like pull this little knife out, but he doesn't really look like he knows what he wants to do with it, and he doesn't really make a show of knowing how to use it. And so Worf would more than likely be disgusted with him and just not even pay him any mind, really, because there's no honor in murdering an enemy that is worth less than the scum on the bottom of Worf's shoe. And his Mechlef deserves better kills. Or whatever weapon he has, because
yes, but you know what? I'm not even. I don't know the name of it, and I curse myself for even attempting to correct you, because knowing what a Mechlef is good enough for me. But this is where I would like to address people outside of the show, because I remember one of the things that a lot of people were making hay about was when Worf says, "I have been endeavoring to become a pacifist," and everyone was like, "They're gonna ruin Worf," and I was like, "It's probably just a joke," and it was. So I was right. Thank you. Who wants to touch me? Hit the tip and the like.
Endeavoring doesn't mean achieving, right?
All I'm saying,
been achieved. Endeavoring means, he would someday love to be a pacifist, but until that day, we're going to be cutting off Ferengi heads.
I remember seeing the A-Team movie, and they made B.A. Baracus a pacifist for like a third of that movie, and I was like, no. And when they said that in the trailer, I was like, they're not going to do that to Worf. And everyone was like, they're going to ruin Worf. And I'm here to tell you, after having seen it, which is all I wanted from the first place, is I was right.
I found it interesting right here that he basically says to Raffi when she's kind of out of it, but at the very last thing that he says, "I warned you about." You know what I mean?
I told you not to engage.
Not to engage, right? So disengage, right? So I thought that was interesting. So there's history there. There's probably history even maybe with Worf and this Ferengi that got his head cut off. So that's what kind of informed me of that. I'm like, oh, okay. So obviously Worf kind of is overseeing I don't know if he's got, the God level oversight of Raffi and what's going on, but it seemed like he has some kind of information and kind of oversight of this mission or her mission. I took from that.
Well, and I'm assuming, although it hasn't been confirmed, but I would, considering that the only other person who would know that Raffi is here, I think this would be an example of, or an establishment that Worf was Raffi's handler. I don't know if we're all in agreement on that, but that's what it seems to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's obvious.
Okay, cool. I'm just making sure because, again, I just gloated for a little while, so I don't want to take it too far.
That was... you did.
So, Worf takes Raffi away from the carnage. Thanks for that. And meanwhile, back on the Titan, We are staring down. We still have some time left in the hour that Vatic has allowed. And we have Riker and Picard coming to the bridge, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And Picard says, we do not have to fight. There is still an opportunity to stand up and negotiate and discuss this. And Captain Shaw is like, you know what? I don't really give a good goddamn if your ex-girlfriend's son is going to be turned over. I think we might as well do it to save the life. And Riker, I don't really want to pay attention to the comatose chick if you want to take her word, because she hasn't said anything. And I think that this is all reasonable for Shaw to say. Mm-hmm. This is a personal thing for you, Picard, and your evidence doesn't talk, Riker. And so a knowing glance between Picard and Riker, and we will see where Riker goes. But back in the brig. Oh, sorry, Jill.
Well, no, that's okay. I actually want to say a good thing. Overall, I do appreciate the attempt at a Star Trek-like moral dilemma of giving up the criminal with potential good intentions to save the entire crew. But then it's not really needed, though, eventually, because Jack has already made up his mind. But then Picard won't allow it. So there's that question, and that is because I'm straining to find Star Trek in this.
Yeah, it's not that it wasn't needed, because Shaw doesn't know that. At this point, he doesn't know that. So it makes it. I think it makes sense.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Well, if he has a plan then to save the crew while potentially also saving Jack, then that would be something cool. But what would that be?
Yeah. Like if it were a matter of it's an interesting dilemma, and then the captain and Riker and Picard come together to figure it out, and they say, okay, let's do this so that we can save everyone involved, and then they go and try and enact that plan, only to discover that plan is going to be thwarted by Jack, who has already taken his actions into his own hands, then that would be a bit more. But again, I can see how people on the other side of the fence would say, well, then none of this matters. It's just a series of events that culminates into what would have happened anyway. Again, I can see the criticism. I appreciate where we're going with the way that the story is presented. I think, that is the most middle of the road thing that I could possibly say.
Yep.
That's moving. No, don't be sorry. You're doing great.
I'm trying here. And so anyway, we have Jack with his little thingamabob that he hooks up to the force field and says, hey, Starfleet, you have to tell me what the power level is on this in case I hurt myself by trying to escape. So will you tell me the power level? And so let's see. Looks like a lieutenant, Super Lieutenant Chalmers here says it's a level 10. And he says, thanks. He hits the button, shuts off the force field for a split second, headbutts Super Lieutenant Chalmers, and runs away.
Yeah, just with the power level. I guess the frequency didn't matter.
If it had been a higher power level, maybe the thing wouldn't have worked.
Maybe.
Anyway, I didn't get any shots of Riker here. I don't know why. But anyway, we go to sick bay. Beverly's there. How is she? She's unconscious, but she is recovering. The doctor says, but she has to rest, and Riker picks up a hypospray and injects her. I'm assuming to wake her up. And here we go back to the bridge where Shaw is saying, we're almost out of time. I'm going to give her the kid. Yeah. I don't care. And Picard is saying, I don't think that's a good idea. Oh, right. I forgot to say, Picard never raises his voice because he is elderly and incapable of it. And when he does, it's kind of comedic. So he is fairly level. And I was noticing the acting levels between the two people it's very even delivery, because if Picard tries to yell, it does sound like someone returning soup at a deli. Mm-hmm. And so they hail. And I forgot. Vatic does hail them a little bit earlier and say, I never told you the name of my ship. It's a Shrike. It's a non-carrion bird of Earth that doesn't necessarily attack out of hunger or malice. It just attacks very strategically, and I'm going to keep pecking away until I get what I want. It's going to be delicious. And so they hail Vatic, and she says, "Yay, great! You guys are on time. Let's do this thing." And is that pretty much what they're basically getting ready to
Pretty much.
to hand him over? At which point, they find out that this is I had too many slides.
So 7 of 9 finds him, and
Yeah.
for some
He's
reason
looking-
Shaw says, "You may have earned your post back," so that shows that he's not quite as so much of a hard nose as he seems.
Right. And so now that they've so with the sacrifice of Jack, like Jack wanting to go, he couldn't have beamed anywhere except over to the Shrike. Then if that's what's happening, then we are locking everything back down. And look at all the stunned looks that Captain Shaw has. And they basically so Riker brings Beverly to the bridge. There is a long glance across the bridge where Picard sees Beverly after all of this time, and Beverly looks longingly, wistfully.
It's the question. He's asking the question, she's answering the question without having to say anything.
Right. And so Picard
and
now
right there he realizes shit.
Yeah. And so they say, "What are we?" And they've locked down the transporter, shields are up, shuttle bays, everything. And Picard says, "Why are you going to risk everything for this kid?" And Picard says, "Because he's my son." Jill, how do you feel? How do you feel
Fine.
about?
Right. Yes. So I was correct about
not in
this.
general at the test.
Yes, I know. I don't know. I don't have any sort of extreme emotion. Sorry.
No, it's fair. I just thought we were afraid that this was going to happen. It was inevitable that it was going to happen, and now that it has been presented.
Yeah, and some people thought he was a clone of Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So this shows.
I just hope that this time it's real.
Yes. Because it was, I forget the name of the episode, but it was Damon Bach had found this kid,
right?
And they said, "This is your son," and then they were like, and then it turns out that it was all a ruse.
They do father-son stuff, and then it turns out that it was a DNA manipulation. Blah 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 blah.
Which is kind of funny because at that point it was season 7. We're running out of ideas. Let's give Picard a son, and now we're in.
That was the theme of season 7 is a mystery family members.
Yes. Yeah. And so so with the acknowledgement of Jack, Crusher, Picard, and 7 being there to say he's here and he's not going anywhere. Let's do this thing, but if we do it, it's all on you. And I like how Shaw snaps into, all right, shields up, forward shields.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get going. LaForge, get ready to fly.
Finally.
And Picard hails Vatic and says, "So, what do you say, Picard?" And Picard says, for the first time in this series or in this season, engage. At which point the Titan starts firing torpedoes, takes off into the Mutara Nebula. We're going very fast. That's why I got this particular image. But we go into the nebula, whether you want it to be Best of Both Worlds or Wrath of Khan, it's up to you, but it goes. And the Shrike is in pursuit as Vatic is chase them very happily.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I thought was menacing.
Yeah.
When she receives fire, she acts as if it tickles her.
Yes. Which I thought was like a cat wanting to play with the mouse before eating it, like playing with its food.
Well, yes, but yeah, she won't fire on the ship because she still wants Jack
Right.
alive.
And that is the end of the episode. But as my mistake was last week, luckily it's the same end credits as it was last week. Here are your LCARS displays. I tried to get clean ones without any. I didn't want to get a Goldsman or a Kurtzman in there, and I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Trigger
But
anybody?
exactly. And so, but these are your
Oh, no.
LCARS displays.
It's
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, that's okay. It's important. Well, go ahead.
No. I was just. I don't know what a lot of these mean. I was looking for things like there's a Durrell class bird. We have images of Klingon text being turned to English, DNA sequences, the holodeck program, which the only one that I could see, which is going to be a reference to Moriarty when we get there. Safety protocols, musical score. If you can read music, I don't know what this means. Please hit me up in the chat or in the comments. Here's I don't even know. Is this the Titan? I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like the Titan.
This is the only one that I got with the timestamp on the bottom there. I apologize, but I thought it was important that we saw the USS Constellation class lost in action in Stardate 4402.3, 002.3. Starbase with a couple of registry numbers. Fleet Museum at 8th and Prime. There's a what class of ship is the Voyager? Anyway, a Voyager classed ship. Intrepid. My mistake. Intrepid class. The EPS flow is nominal. Myriad Kodak from the first episode. Starfleet performance of Liam Shaw. It's confidential, which I'm sure that we'll get into just based on I'm hoping we get into based on the drop on it's good to see you stable enough to continue with your command.
Right.
The text that we saw from Worf to Raffi at the beginning of the episode, a biomed monitor, and scene. So that was the episode.
I like this episode, and I always know. This is always a measure of how I know I'm into an episode. Is when it seems like only 5 minutes goes by and it ends and the episode ends and you're like, oh dude, that's the end. Whenever I verbally say, oh, that's the end, I know that I'm pretty engrossed in the episode or the movie, whatever I'm being, engrossed in, TV or movie or whatever. And this did that for me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. I want more of this. So
that's interesting. And maybe this is how the three of us felt about it. I was completely satisfied with the length of the episode. And I felt the same way when we were watching the last week's episode. I commented out loud and I was like, I can't believe how long this episode is. And it was 48 minutes. Like it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And
I
same
think
with this
48
one.
or 49 minutes too, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so like it didn't strike me as being too short. It didn't strike me as being too long.
It didn't feel too short. I'm just saying it was like I was engrossed enough to where it felt like it was a short episode. And usually I know that I'm engrossed in something when it ends and you're like, wait a minute, I want let's have more of this. So for me, it worked. But as a whole, I think the episode worked as an episode. I mean, these are basically parts of a movie. This season is going to be a movie. It's just chopped up into episodic bits.
And Jill, did you find the episode interminable?
No, it definitely ended. So, yeah,
Okay,
it was an episode.
Fair enough.
I didn't feel like it was too long. Yeah, I'd say definitely the last one felt longer.
Okay.
I have a feeling that after the end of this Is there 10 episodes? 10 episodes.
Yes.
I'm gonna wish it was dropped all at once instead of week to week,
Yes.
because I think this would be better binged as a whole. But we'll have to see.
Yes.
We'll have to wait and see.
If it's good, yes. If it's bad, then they are doing their jobs in terms of keeping people subscribed, because ultimately, product.
Right, product.
And PvP says that scene was dumb. He had a device to short out the force field, and no one searched him before incarcerating him.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, I agree completely. That thought did pass my mind, and I just forgot to put it in my notes. So thank you very much. Also, I think Victor Fontaine made a similar comment too.
Possibly.
Yeah, and already established. That's well established in Star Trek lore, all over TV shows, and you're always you can almost always get out of a prison cell or any kind of holding cell in Star Trek. Our heroes do it, our villains do it.
The one that comes to mind is the Klingons in Heart of Honor. In the first season, where they construct a disruptor out of their boots and belts, and
Right.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that was before they even had a real brig for the brig set, and they just
True.
put him in a room.
Edge of Time says Riker triggers my pogonophobia.
Fear of beard.
Is that fear of beer?
Beard. Fear of beard.
Fear of beards. Oh wow, I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is.
PvP, thank you for letting Edge of Time. I learned something today. Thank you. PvP says Riker injects Beverly against doctor's orders so we can have the dramatic, totally predictable fan service moment. I don't think it's fan service, PvP, but that Jack is Beverly and Picard's offspring. Amazing. I didn't see it coming. We all saw it coming. Yeah. And hopefully they do something good with it, because I think it is an overused trope. It's been used in Star Trek and it's been used across fiction. So I am with you on that. I just hope they use it well.
Yeah, they're paralleling Kirk's son.
I'm Dr. Crusher. Sure. Daniel's Hot Topic says, if it was a clone of Jack Crusher, it would have been odd. Why would Beverly clone her husband and raise him as her son? What is really going on there? You don't think she would sleep with a minor, do you?
That never made sense to me. So yeah, that didn't make sense. Not a clue.
That's a good point, Daniel.
In all honesty, I was kind of leaning towards the clone thing, just so that people would, just because I wasn't looking forward to, he's my son. And it was, I didn't want that dun dun dun.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
I got it, whether I wanted it or not. Pleasant Valley Pickers says Wrath of Khan's special effects were much better. I didn't have any problem with the special effects at all. I thought that they were
apples and spaceships. It's a movie budget and a TV budget completely different.
Well, but I think that it's fair to compare. I think it's fair to compare when you're talking Star Trek, because there's been, like, if you think of Species 8572 versus Odo.
It's unfair to compare movie budgets with TV budgets.
I'm okay with it. I don't think it's offside.
It's unfair because Wrath of Khan was so amazing. The tension was so palpable throughout the whole movie that this could never touch that.
The VFX budget for a movie is it's just way larger than any episode of TV. It's not a fair comparison.
I don't know. I'd like to see the.
Are they making a movie or not?
Well, yeah, there's that argument as well. But
no,
I don't even
streaming television show, and it has a streaming television show budget. Just because it's adjusted to our time from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when Wrath of Khan came out.
In terms of the economics, it would be interesting to compare.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that anyways.
But I didn't see anything wrong with the special effects. PvP gives it a C-. Fair enough, man.
Fair enough.
Generous.
Generous.
I wouldn't. Okay.
That's a steaming pile of shit.
Well, no, C- isn't a steaming pile of shit. C-, like I think that to say that it's generous for PvP is definitely accurate.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
well,
maybe.
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, if this
think
show
they
was
should generous.
entitled Pirate Mercantilism Galactic Adventures, then yeah, C- makes sense.
I'm not that harsh either. Vic says, I thought Shaw went against character and flipped too easily. He's been fighting for the lives of his 500 crew all episode and just hands over the ship because Picard says he has a son. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting point.
Well, it humanizes the situation, one, and two, it makes Jack a Federation citizen.
And yeah, and based on what had been said in terms of whether or not Starfleet was an altruistic organization in the first place, then I think that there would have been imagine a slight change in this, and we beam Jack over to the Shrike, and then we spend another episode trying to get Jack back.
Well, also being a captain, it also entails taking risks, and it's very clear that this Vadic lady is not going to fire upon the ship because of Jack. So it makes sense that this is a moment to take that opportunity and skedaddle.
Yeah.
PvP says, not bang my head on the desk bad, but not much better. PvP, if you are banging your head off of anything based on entertainment, then I just don't. PvP says, it actually pissed me off when they played the first Contact theme at the end. More cringy fan service. PvP, in this particular instance, you and I are 100% on the same page. I think it took me a long time because watching First Contact, I never understood why it was such a melodic theme at the beginning of such a bombastic action movie. And it wasn't until I saw First Contact for about the 5th time that I realized that that is the theme of humanity meeting the Vulcans. That is what the First Contact theme is. And to use it here is absolutely pandering fan service. No argument. Steve?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, you also mentioned that you heard the V'ger sound.
Yes, there is an instance when the Titan goes into not the Mutara Nebula, it does make the V'ger sound, or if you prefer your Star Wars, it makes the Jango Fett explosion seismic charge in space sound.
I'll have to I'll watch the episode again because I didn't catch that. The First Contract theme at the end of, are we talking about in the credits or?
You know it, over the Elcars, the Elcars.
Yeah,
even at the beginning, it does the da da da, and then it does a brief First Contact theme, but it does use that, and I do find that to be, you don't even know what this theme is meant for. The First Contact theme is meant to signify the meeting between the humans and the Vulcans. That's what it is. And you used it here so that I could be reminded of what some people think is the best Star Trek The Next Generation movie.
And the first flight of the Phoenix.
Vic says...
It doesn't bother me at all.
That's fair. So I have a son that I didn't know about, and running and hiding in a nebula from a ship that can outgun and outrun them gives the feel of a Wrath of Khan retread. It's Vic. That's why I'm calling it not the Mutara Nebula.
Brilliant point, Victor.
Yes. Edge of Time says, I'll have the Star Trek salad, or I'll have the Trek salad sandwich, sir. Or no, I'll have the Trek salad sandwich, sir. This is a Wendy's. Daniel's Hot Topics gives it a B+.
Solid.
Yeah. PvP says, I try to be respectful. Sad some folks don't. Well, come on. We all play with fire from time to time, PvP, and you're not you're no different. We're walking on eggshells. We're in a contentious season of television, and so tempers may flare. PvP says, I love the First Contact theme, Scotty. It's incredibly beautiful and moving. Yeah, and I didn't like it until I actually pieced it together, and I now do love it, and I do. That's the thing. That is the thing. I'm going to say this out loud, even though I'm not sure if I'm supposed to, but Edge of Time says,
you don't.
Should I say it or no?
You can.
Japandering. It just rolls off the tongue. I don't even know what it's in reference to, but okay. Daniel's Hot Topics says, is Vic Fontaine a real historical person? I think he is Frank Sinatra ripoff. I always thought he was a Bobby Darin ripoff. But I know that James Darin, who played Vic Fontaine, was actually was a lounge singer. He has
really
albums.
does.
He was in the Time Tunnel. But yeah, no, Vic Fontaine. Yeah, I appreciate the username.
Yeah, really, it's great because he actually does sing like that at the Star Trek convention with Armin Shimmerman and
James Darin. Yeah, awesome singer.
And
probably an amalgam of all of those kind of crooners, right?
And PvP says, I do think First Contact is the best Next Generation film. Well, it's okay. People can have their opinions.
I got to say, the happiest I am during this review is when we talk about real Star Trek.
Yeah, totes. No, but that's the thing. But I want to say that there is fan service that can be frustrating, and then there can be references which are satisfying. And I don't think that making references to the 735 are pandering fan service all the time. I also think that in terms of with the special effects, I think the special effects are fine for what they are. In fact, I think they're rather dazzling for it's better than tentacles coming out of a hole in space, yo.
Right. With this kind of IP, Scotty, it would be weird if there wasn't fan service. It would be jarring. It'd be like, why aren't you referencing this? And why didn't they put this here? So, like I said, fan service is not automatically negative.
Right.
Fan service is, it just is. Now, whether it lands for you right or wrong is one aspect of it. Obviously, how they use it and write it. And design it for visual reference. How they handle it is also a part of it as well.
Yes. Now I'm going to end the poll, and it's interesting because we're basically the same place we were last week. I don't know how to show the poll to everybody. I can see it. Anybody who's in the chat can see it. Will you be watching episode 3 with 17 votes in the poll? If you'd like to vote now, because I will be ending it rather quickly. But with 47% of the vote, which I still appreciate because that's a Star Trek reference from the Bourbon era, is yes, and no is 53% of the vote, and so that is ending the poll.
So I'm sorry, 53% said they're not continuing.
53 said no, not moving on to episode 3, and 47 said yes.
Okay.
I am going to be watching because I liked this. I like how this episode built on last week's.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. Again, I think that this is interesting, but still not enough for me to know whether or not I like it, because I don't know if the people that we're bringing back are doing anything or if we're just seeing them for the sake of seeing them. The interaction that I've seen with the Next Generation crew so far and with 7 of 9, I've liked Riker and Picard's dynamic, but Worf was too brief. I was happy to see Worf. I even said it when I was watching it. I was like, it's good to see Worf. It's always good to see Worf. And if you say that it's pandering or his hair's too white or something like that, I just don't get it. I know it's too white, so we shouldn't even have him in. Like, I just don't understand how you don't like, even if you don't like the present under your Christmas tree, it's fun to unwrap it. And in this particular instance, it's fun to see that. I'm hoping that the mysteries or the setups that because I don't even think they're mysteries, but the setups that are being employed are interesting and engaging. But I don't think that it's got the fan. It hasn't yet earned the fanfare that I've heard from some critics, and I don't think that it has earned the derision that other people are giving it either.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly.
Jill, in terms of kidnapping you and trying to take you aboard the Shrike for whatever reason, which I appreciate. I appreciate that you are joining us in this conversation. You are planning on watching it, I'm assuming.
Yes. So we get another action plot heavy episode with story elements, which makes sense one after the other. And that's the nicest thing I can say. Everything ties together well, as if this show were just a plain science fantasy show, or even Star Wars at this point, with all the pirates and the bounty hunting, and be like, yeah, okay, this is something to watch. But since it does insist on having that Star Trek label, there's it's definitely not Star Trek. And that said, despite the numerous Easter eggs and Star Trek characters, even Worf, who I love, but most Star Trek I really see is bits in the performance of Jonathan Frakes. And but of course, Starfleet is still being painted as this bad guy who covers up for murders and doesn't want Raffi to solve the crime that caused the big portal gun to appear and destroy the Starfleet recruitment building. Seven never formally gets charged or reprimanded for her insubordination. I don't know if that's, like you said,
Raffi doesn't, or Seven.
7 of 9 is what I meant to say.
Sure.
I don't know if that's just because of the captain's incompetence, or like you were saying earlier, it just hasn't been that much time for him to process anything, because he should be able to look at his audio video recordings. And then we meet the villain of this season, which is a straight up villain rather than the antagonist you mostly find in a Star Trek series. Captain Vadic is performed well enough, but we don't get much of her character yet, or her motivations or plans. So I'm not too gripped with her yet in terms of her interaction with the Titan crew. So I don't care too much yet, but I am going to watch the next one.
And if you were not roped into this, would you still be watching? Would you be watching at all?
I actually probably would, but I would just shove it into my Friday show as like a 20-minute segment where I just talked about it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yeah, you didn't mention how they started the show again with another song from Picard's playlist, I'm supposing, which I'm starting to wonder now if it's just an amalgamation of the music that real Picard had studied at some point.
I don't think that and I didn't mention the contemporary song. The song was called Star Child. I forget what band played it, but it was a 70s rock song. And I know that when I was watching it, I said, I don't know, no contemporary music in Star Trek. But then it was mentioned that I'm okay with Sabotage in Into Beyond, or in Star Trek Beyond. So, but yeah, and I was fine with the ink spots from last week. So
you mean the Parliament song?
Well,
was it Parliament? No, it wasn't Parliament. The song at the very beginning when they were showing Jack flying through space in the Elios.
I have to go back and listen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, ink spots does seem like it's more like Picard style, but this one didn't seem like.
I don't think it was part of Picard's. Playlist. I think that was specific to Jack.
Some random thing. Oh, okay. So it was Jack's song. So okay. Speaking of Jack, so okay, so Terry is getting away with having all this piracy and mercantilism through the character of Jack, since it's a medical vessel trying to get medicine to people who are sick. And that action in and of itself is a Star Trek theme. In here, we're supposed to accept that the ends justify the means for Jack's methodology of his sort of Doctors Without Borders sort of thing that he's doing. And he thinks that it's totally fine for a Starfleet vessel to be engaging in that piracy and mercantilism. But of course, I know Jack's not in Starfleet, but in the Star Trek universe, he shouldn't have to engage in this type of behavior. He should be able to get to a starbase, stock up on the supplies he needs, and get backup escorts from maybe a more military heavy vessel, since there are pirates around, to pick up the medicine to heal. So I'm not saying that the finished these Fenris Ranger guys wouldn't be around. Obviously they are, but it's just that I would think that Beverly should have taught her son how to do things right. But this is Kurtzman Trek.
Right. And I do want to address that just quickly. And I'm sorry, Steve, if I'm jumping in before you have a chance to respond, because I am.
Yes.
But I like the fact that there is a little bit of piracy and mercantilism in this, and it is an expansion of the universe and seeing what is happening outside of Federation space and seeing what the people outside of Federation space contend with without the protection of Starfleet or the Federation. And also, what does Starfleet think of those who have not? Because there are going to be inhabited industrialized worlds that don't want to be a part. What do you mean we can't have commerce anymore or the economy? I'm assuming the Ferengi isn't a part of the Federation, or at least not in this time period, maybe in the 30th century, but we don't talk about Discovery. But I like the expansion, and if it is a little rough around the edges, or if it is a little bit more violent, again, to paraphrase Q, the space is wondrous, and if you're afraid of a little bloody nose, then it's time to go home and crawl under your bed. Like, I don't understand, like, and I may be sounding adamant about it, but like, there is something that if you are looking at it as a Federation centric plot line, I do like seeing what happens outside of that. I think that assertion is more applicable to something like Picard season 1, where it's like the Federation wouldn't help the Romulans because it is an evil, racist, xenophobic organization. I'm on board with you. But if you're looking at the population of the galaxy that doesn't necessarily abide by Federation law, then I think that you are... Well, no, I don't think you're doing anything. I'm thinking I appreciate the expansion of that, and I can understand the things that happen outside of 5-year missions and being part of a Starfleet crew.
I just always saw Starfleet as an organization that would help people whether they were within their territory or not.
And
but only if that help is requested.
What about... Yeah, like, or even if it is requested, look at the one that had David Marcus and Joaquin from Wrath of Khan, and they had the Felicium, and they wouldn't let them continue their symbiotic relationship with the drugs, and they wouldn't even assist them with relieving the withdrawal symptoms, because it would have gone against the Prime Directive, which ultimately would have destroyed one of the two civilizations because of the moral authority of what Starfleet was doing. It has never been black and white and sunshine and lollipops.
Well, that's a good point, because I definitely looked through this from a lens of the TV series, and pointing out the movies does make sense, since this is...
It was the actors, but it's from, again, I think it's from a first season episode of Next Generation, and the reason I keep going back to like the first season of Next Generation is because...
Wait, which episode was that?
It's called Symbiosis, and it's the Breckians and the somebody else.
Oh, right.
And that is a situation, and it's the don't do drugs are bad episode, and that is fingers deep of Gene Roddenberry, because he was very much showrunner during the first season, where it shows that the moral authority of Starfleet isn't always something that is going to come out. And even with the altruism of Dr. Crusher in that episode, they're like, well, we're not going to do it. Why? Because of the Prime Directive. So to say
like that episode,
and it is Starfleet being a bitch under the command of Jean-Luc Picard in not Prime Picard, but in first season, Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I think that when people are looking back and saying this isn't as good as not when people are. I think that I think the comparisons can be drawn from this one to the old ones, and even if it doesn't line up perfectly, there are echoes or similarities, and after 40 years, it's not a bad thing for those echoes to be, again, rough edges. That's how I feel. And yeah, end of speech.
Good one.
Let me see. There are. I do have. So yeah, I'm just gonna if everybody is copacetic, I'm gonna wrap up through the chat, and then we can warp out of here.
Agreed.
Perfect. PvP says, I never said all fan service was bad. Sometimes it's just inappropriate. Agreed on both counts. I didn't think you
Yes.
did, man.
Like
And
in
I
lower decks when they crawl over the bones of giant Spock.
when they crawl over the bones of giant Spock, or when in Picard season 2 they have the skull of Martok, Ducat,
Probably
yeah,
Rom.
probably Rom, yeah. So yeah, no, it is. Sometimes it is, and yeah, there's even when there's been Hey, let's bring Spock back in Star Trek Discovery. Why? Because Mike needs a sister or needs a brother or whatever. I don't. Daniel's Hot Topic says, the people on YouTube are going to rip Picard season 3 episode 2 to pieces. They will go after Worf, killing all these people, saying there is no honor in Worf. In that Worf would never do that. People may say
they're always going to do that. And look, you can go find whoever's doing that and find their favorite whatever their favorite episode of television is and rip that apart too. It's easy. It's easy because these human beings are writing this, and everybody's got a take or a hot take. That's the internet, bro. It is what it is. It's especially YouTube. But
well, and the fans are going to be critical, or fans are going to be embracing, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. PvP says, so there was lots of fan service in the first 2 seasons. Yes. Yep. Poorly handled fan service, in my opinion.
Yeah, some good.
And they were packing it up at the beginning of the season.
I want it to feel like old Star Trek, and yet why do they keep talking about old Star Trek? I don't. Anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Daniel says, I know people who just hate new Trek and complain about everything. I guess they like boring talkie Trek. People do.
I like boring talkie Trek.
I love boring talkie Trek. Hashtag make Star Trek boring again.
Make Star Trek cerebral again. That would be great.
Like that episode where never mind.
The Cage.
Yeah.
The Cage, for sure. Or Spock's brain. That was cerebral. It had stuff to do with the cerebellum. No, but again.
Well, you know what? There are bad parts of that episode, but I like when McCoy is performing surgery on Spock. It's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. PvP says Worf was the one great part. Well, I'm glad that and if there are spikes of interest and whatnot. Let's see. PvP goes on to say, Scotty, I agree. Both polarized opinions are kind of silly. I agree. Yeah. Again, that's why the poll is: are you going to continue watching or are you not? And if you are not, then I would assume it's because you don't like it, and why waste your time watching something that you don't like?
Correct.
Vic says, Pally, sometimes being a hologram can be a real pain in the asymmetric photons.
Nice.
Thank you, Vic.
Pally.
And Daniel's Hot Topics. I will, if you guys want to. But we're coming up on 3 hours, and I kind of want to wind down. But speculation is interesting. Which next gen crew members will bite the space dust at the end of the season? I vote Picard, Beverly Crusher, and Geordi LaForge. I will join you in speculation and say that I'm guessing Picard will die.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the end of the road for Picard. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know if they're ready to kill off these characters yet. Picard, for sure, but I don't know if they're ready, because I think they kind of have eyes on continuing on with some of these characters in a Titan show or something of that nature.
Yeah. PvP says, I'm a rational moderate in the middle. Oh, crap. I guess I'd better move to a cabin in the woods. I thought you did live in a cabin in the woods. I want to live in a cabin in the woods as long as it's got internet.
That was Canadian Spider-Man, but then he went to Mexico.
Yes. Well, then
get out of these big cities for sure.
PvP says, well, even in the future centuries, classic songs will be listened to.
Yes.
I can't argue with that. There's just something, and again, maybe it's the same way that some people feel about aspects of Star Trek, in that when as you mentioned here, PvP, folks still listen to Bach, yeah, and I thought that it was sort of an elevation and more cerebral that they listened to classical music, and the incorporation of contemporary music I find jarring, or at
Yes.
least it takes me out of it to a certain extent, and I give a little bit of a pass to Blue Skies from the beginning of Picard season 1, the ink spots at the beginning of this season, but I can understand how people would tear their hairs out and
Look, I love the classical music in Star Trek. It's kind of synonymous, but I also love the jazz and stuff we got and swing in Deep Space Nine, so I dig it. So it doesn't bother me as much as I think it does you, Scotty, the contemporary stuff.
Well, and again, I'm fine with sabotage in Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, right? Not with Hey,
like
man,
when they play Fight the Power, and I'm okay with it. But if they play a song from the 70s, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, and Vic and Sister singing together is wonderful.
Finity says, don't do Romulan ale. Star Trek glorifies alcohol abuse. Well, as you said, drugs.
Well,
drugs.
Sure, Scotty saves the day one time, like, drinking another alien under the table, and says, "We did it, you and I, together," and kisses the bottle.
Oh, okay. And so then, everyone seems to be heading out. PvP says, Scotty rules. Wow, this is late. I need to eat and sleep soon. Marina Sirtis says, Daniel's hot topic went back to London, so they probably will axe her character off. Finity saying, and the people of Texas did thus rejoice.
At least half of them.
And PvP says the 70s were awesome. No argument, dude. And I'm going to look up that song, and I'm probably going to post it to my Twitter. And it's because I liked the song. I just found it. What? Vic Fontaine says, thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Steve. Great stream. Well, thank you, Vic, for being here.
Thanks, Pally.
Thank you.
Nice. And Admiral Teague says, hail and Admiral's compliments. I somewhat disagree, but what questions I posed you did answer. We'll talk next week. Hail all. And Daniel's Hot Topics to close her out says, I hope they put TOS back into canon in New Trek Disco ruined continuity. Daniel, TOS has never left as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Same.
And Lemon Pie, thank you for being here. All right. We have a sign off catchphrase. Who's doing the sign off catchphrase?
I think you are.
Am I doing it? All right. Hailing frequencies closed.